on this thing here. Mr. John, you're on, tell me. You should be on right along. Yeah, that should be good. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me get you. Mr. John?
If you guys are just joining us, we are live, and this is a special ride along production, ride along live, bringing it to you earlier than normal. And we are waiting for the start of the press conference by the attorney, Mr. Jerry Edwin, who is the lawyer representing COVID patient number 25. They are gearing up and getting things in order to start. And as we could see right now, things are just about getting ready. And as soon as they start, we will bring it to you live here on Ride Along Live. Guys, we also want you to participate in this discussion because we do understand that this is terrifying times, and everyone needs to know the truth. Everyone needs to understand how to better protect themselves. And if there are people that might be lingering, might be out there that possibly carrying the virus, we want to know the full story. Of course, we heard the story from the Ministry of Health, and I'm sure that quite possibly we might get a different part of the story here from the lawyer representing COVID-19 patient number 25. Let me see if they started over there, and let's check the audio. See if they're ready to start, and as soon as they're ready to go, we will bring it to you live. Again, guys, also you could participate in this discussion here by calling in live. We're gonna be taking calls live on the Ride Along phone. The number 718-701-5720. 718-701-5720. Later on, we'll take calls live. Again, this is the press conference. Let me see if everything is started.
At 2:35. Let me see.
All right, they're still taking care of some technical. They're still getting some technical issues sorted out.
Good. Click on it because I'm about to start.
All right, you're about to start. Jerry Edwin, who is the lawyer representing COVID-19 patient number 25. And I guess the whole world is anxious to hear what is the contradiction, if there is a contradiction to the initial story that broke just a few days ago from the Ministry of Health. And we are anxiously waiting for the start of this as we wait, patiently wait to hear what Jerry Edwin has to say. Guys, again, this is a live broadcast, early live broadcast from on Ride Along Live. Tag a friend, share it to someone, because it's going to start pretty soon. Let me see who already inside. Hi, Christine, how you doing? Welcome to the live. Go ahead and share the program. The inside of the Zoom already, we have a list of media. I see Boss FM, a bunch of different media houses are just ready, queuing up with their questions. No one really know what to expect at this point. I tell you the truth. None of us know what Jerry Edwin will say. If there is a contradiction to what was already said by the Ministry of Health, we don't know the story. We don't know the other side of the story. We're just waiting patiently to hear that. And again, as soon as that starts, we'll bring it to you live. This is Ride Along Live, exclusive early broadcast. I see Roses. Everybody's here. Just doing an audio check to make sure that everyone is hearing and seeing fine. Again, guys, if you want to participate or if you have a question, we're going to open up the phone lines, and this would be your number that you could call us. We'll try to get your question across as well. The number is 718-701-5720, or you could also comment on the screen, and we'll try to get your question asked through the Zoom broadcast. Initially, it was carded for 4:30 p.m., but then it was changed. It was called for 3:30 p.m. Then it was changed to 4 o'clock. We're not sure why there was a change in the time, a delay of about half an hour. We're not sure if there are papers that being filed. We basically don't know what the story is. Really, truly. In fact, earlier when I got the call from the law firm, I was trying to figure out what are we expected to hear. What are we expected to hear? Um, uh, but nothing was leaked to the media. Nothing was leaked to me. So we just have to sit and wait to see what will be said here today. Let's see. All right. Again, they're still taking care of some minor technical difficulties before they start the broadcast. Jerry Edwin, who is the lawyer representing that patient 25, COVID patient 25. Um, Jerry Edwin also represented the a few controversial cases in the past couple months. If you guys remember, we had him on talking about the young man that was shot in Guelph. He was a lawyer representing that young man, the soccer player that was shot by police in Guelph. He takes on uh, pretty hefty controversial cases, and this one, if it is a contradiction to what was put out by the Ministry of yeah, if it is contradictory to what was put out by the ministry, then it would be very interesting to hear what the contradictions are, right? So again, we don't know what if there is contradiction, if there are contradiction
Yes,
or
please.
not. Okay,
Yes,
Jerry
hello,
Edwin is
friends.
about
Good
to start.
afternoon.
Okay, here we go. Right in.
Yes, call him. I can call. Yeah, call him. I have the number here. Yes. 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 Oh,
All right. Again, we're gonna wait. They're still going through some technical issues there as they try to sort it out, and I'm sure they're gonna start pretty soon. Don't go far because I'm assuming that within a matter of minutes, everything should be on the way. Again, you're watching Right Along Live early broadcast. This is the press briefing, emergency press briefing that was just scheduled.
yes. Good. Good. Good afternoon. This is Jerry Edwin from Eden Law Caribbean. If folks can see me, I thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. George, Junior George. Good afternoon, Boss FM, Ms. Straker, and the rest of you, MTV, Tanya. Good afternoon, Miss Ferrer. Miss Faria. Good afternoon to you too. I thought that it was important, I should say necessary, not just important, but very necessary, that we call this press briefing to correct what really has been unfortunate remarks that have been made in the press and on social media with respect to COVID patient 25, or it as that individual is so designated by the Ministry of Health. And I want to be very clear. I don't know why. Why do we have feedback? Someone needs to turn their phone down. Thank you. I want to be absolutely clear about something. Let us call the patient, let us call him COVID 25. Let's call him that. The gentleman came in from Canada, from Toronto. And when he came into Grenada, as most of you know, it would have been impossible for him to board a transatlantic airliner without having a PCR test that rendered him negative. Negative. So COVID patient 25 boarded a transatlantic jetliner with a test that said he was negative. When he arrived in Grenada, as is the protocol, he presented that certificate of his good health to the officials at the Maurice Bishop International Airport. But Grenada has protocols. Our protocols say that in spite of your test, you must be quarantined for 4 consecutive days. And in fact, that happened. The patient spent the first day in quarantine, the second day, and the third, and the fourth in quarantine. What does quarantine in Grenada means? Now, in Canada, in the United States, in other countries, it means a different thing. I am certain from what it means in Grenada. Because the quarantine conditions under which the COVID patient was placed is really, when you look at it, a stopover at a small hotel. He, along with the other persons that were in that hotel, were allowed regular visitors, daily visitors. They brought him meals. Nobody wore a mask. Why, you might ask? Should we be critical of the persons in the Ministry of Health? I say no. The reason why, it's because they had negative tests. They had negative PCR tests. So it was understood. I am respectfully suggesting by both the patient, the other persons in quarantine, their visitors, and the health officials in Grenada, that a negative PCR test means exactly what it says. The patient or the individual, that person is negative. So there was no guard at the desk or in front of the door. There was no police officer to ensure that no one would visit or that folks had to wear masks or they had to wear gloves. Nothing of the sort. The protocol was for 4 days in quarantine, and then you go home. On the evening, oh, don't forget, the individuals who are in quarantine must pay for that quarantine themselves. There were 5 persons on that plane along with patient 25. On the evening of the 4th day, at around 5 o'clock, the patient asked, hey, can we go home now? Today's the 4th day. They said, well, you have to wait for the results. It'll be here in about a half hour. 5:30 came, 6 o'clock came, 7 o'clock came, and he said, listen, I can't afford to pay for any of this, I need these test results. They said, well, we don't know when we'll get it. My client, patient 25, said, no, I have to go. I've spent the time that is required for me to be in quarantine. There's no testing when they're in quarantine. It's a protocol. You spend 4 days and then you leave. I'm not going to say that my patient should have, my client should have left. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that he made a mistake. But I want to say what that mistake is not, because there are a lot of stories in the media that are just false. When my client arrived at Morris Bishop Airport, he had a car that he had rented, like most of us who, I used to do it when I lived in the United States. I'd make arrangements for a rental car. That car would meet me at MBIA, and then I would go where I had to go. I've seen reports in the media that the gentleman hailed a taxi and that he ran away from the unsecured small hotel where he and the others were living. Well, that is completely false, not the truth. The gentleman drove himself in his rental vehicle. He drove to the village where he was going to live. He went to Tivoli, left his bags, then he went to Hermitage, visited with some friends. A couple of days later, he gets a telephone call. Not a visit from a health official. And we would later learn, it's really unfortunate, that the patient himself was not told by a health official what his status was. Instead, someone from the Ministry of Health called the cousin. And he said to that cousin, oh, tell your cousin his test came back positive. Well, my friends, you can imagine the frenzy, the hysteria, the bad news, the incorrect information emanated from that point. When Mr. Patient 25 got that call, they said to him, you got to come back home. You got to come quarantine. The man said, of course. He jumped in his car and drove himself back. He didn't run away in the first instance, and no one arrested him or picked him back. Voluntarily, he went back because he couldn't understand. I'm not positive. My cousin is with me. We slept on the same bed in quarantine hotel. All these people came on the plane with. He has lived for 19 years. No one on his job, nobody in his family were infected. He has a negative PCR. He wants to get to the bottom of it, so he goes back. I dare say, by the time of that phone call, I think half of Grenada must be. I think our health officials need to with caution persons' private medical information. This is private. This is private. Man goes back. But by Monday morning, news was, well,
there's a technical issue. Your wife said to stop.
Just give me 1 minute, please. I think we have an issue.
All right, so they're having a bit of a technical issue on their end, but there's a lot of questions that came up just based on what he just said. There's a lot of questions that just came up. He spoke about the the fact that he got on the airplane with a valid test. There was claims that that test was somehow falsified. So we want to know that first and foremost. And he mentioned he stayed in quarantine for 4 days. And I believe that the Ministry of Health requirement was at least 5 days. And were he given approval to leave quarantine? And if he was not given approval to leave quarantine, then he breached quarantine. Whether or not because I know some people that they were basically said that they should stay 4 days, but they have a test or a pending test, and they can't leave in 4 days or 5 days. So all of these questions will be asked as soon as they figure out their technical issues on their end. Those are did he get approval to leave? Right? There's so much stuff. How many people did he expose himself to, or how many people was exposed because of the fact that he left quarantine before he were actually given the approval to do so? All of these things, guys, again, will be posed to the attorney as soon as those technical issues get resolved. The video right now on Edwin's line is frozen, and I know it's not on our end, so it's on his end. So we're waiting on that to fix. Guys, this kind of raised more questions than answers right now. It's raised a lot of questions, a lot more questions. So that's what's happening on their screen there, guys. So just bear with us. I'm sure they're gonna come back in pretty soon. And I guess one of the main thing that, why did he leave if in fact he was not given the okay approval to leave? And here's the other thing on the ministry end. Did the ministry contacted him directly? Jerry Edwin said that they didn't. They contacted his cousin, and his cousin got the information over to him. That is crazy. So there's a lot of things that we need the clarification on, and I really hope that that situation get rectified pretty soon. So stay with us, guys. Here you're watching Ride Along Live. This is a impromptu live broadcast. They're coming back in. Hopefully they rectify that issue pretty soon over on their end. And also I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to open up the phone lines on our end, so you two can pose your question as soon as they clear that up. You'll be able to send your questions to Ride Along, and we'll pipe it into their Zoom, so you could pose your question live right now. Again, this is the press briefing for patient number 25, the patient who were accused allegedly for allegedly breaching quarantine rules, and it's later was found out that he in fact was tested positive for COVID. Those are some of the information that came out just this week, and right now he's being identified as COVID patient number 25. We don't have a name, so that's how he will be identified for the time being. Guys, I guess I could take some calls now, because I know that some of you guys have questions on some things that you heard so far. So give us a call. This is the number on the screen: 718-701-5720. 718-701-5720. Tell us about from what you heard so far, what are some of the questions that's lingering at the moment? All right. 4 days in quarantine. He didn't stay the 5 days. He drove his own car. He didn't take a taxi or anything like that. He found out that he had the positive test from a family member. He was not contacted directly. Why didn't they not contact him directly? As to from what Mr. Edwin is saying, all of these things, it just begs a lot of question. 718-701-5720 is my number. Call us up right now and let's get some of your views on the topic. That's my number again: 718-701-5720. As we go live into this press briefing, which is happening now, and they're delayed for some reason because of some technical issues they're having on their end. It's 718-701-5720. The other question that is lingering, right, that I really want to find out is, um, did he come into the country with the virus, right? And did he come into the country with the virus? And if that is the case, how did he get on the plane if the requirement from the airline is that you have that COVID test? We got a call on the line. Caller, you live. Where you calling us from?
Calling from Brooklyn, New York.
Go right ahead, Brooklyn, New York. What's your take on from what you heard so far?
Okay, I just have two things to say.
Uh-huh.
The health department clearly states 4 days quarantine, but obviously anybody with common sense would know if you're being put in quarantine until you're tested, you should wait for the results. I mean, regardless of how you look at it, why
Yes.
are you being put in quarantine? You're being put in quarantine so that a test can be done before you're free to go. So he was wrong. No matter how you look at it, he was wrong. As far as them calling the family member, maybe that's the phone number that he gave them to contact him on. You know what? Do they just go around calling any and anybody? He
Right.
had to have given them a number.
Yes.
So maybe that's the number that he gave them to contact him on.
Yes.
You know
True.
what I mean?
True.
The guy was wrong. I mean, this is an adult and it's quarantine. I mean, in that case, if anybody would be free to go, wouldn't they just let you leave from the airport and just go home?
Yeah, but
If you don't think that you have to wait for the result.
But caller, let me just put a thought in your head right now. The picture that Jerry Edwin is painting, as it relates to the facility. Okay, I think they're coming back.
Oh
on.
yeah,
I think they're coming back on right now. Stand by.
sure, that's no problem.
All right. Caller, I got
Folks, can you hear me now, please?
Yeah, we could hear.
Just acknowledge. You could hear me now.
Yeah, I can help you. I can hear you, but I cannot
Okay,
see.
Right. They're coming back on right now. Caller, you made a very good point. Another very valid point, what I wanted to interject is that the facility that he stayed in, right? He said that, people was coming and going and it was no real security there. And that is the weakest link. That is potentially the weakest link. And that, if that is the case, as I said yesterday, I believe that facilities supposed to have proper security, and that those security probably supposed to be manned by probably the RGPF, not just anybody just securing the premises where you have people who might have be friends with the security guard. I guess you could do it with RGPF as well, but I mean it is more probable, I guess, if you'd have security at the hotel that might be friends with the person. It poses a greater risk. So the question is, should the RGPF and the Ministry of Health play a stricter role in ensuring that proper security is guaranteed at those facilities? Caller, I guess you could make a quick respond before they come back on. What do you think about that?
And I've also said from the beginning, there's too many loopholes with this whole protocol stuff. They haven't really thought this thing through. They really haven't thought it through. But once again, we're adults,
Yes.
and everybody's supposed to be
Yes.
responsible
Okay, folks.
for
I
themselves.
Okay, caller.
Dr.
Hi, caller.
J. Can you hear me?
I call it. They're coming back on again, guys. Watching this live broadcast
What
here.
is going on with technology?
We are hearing you. He can't hear me, but we are hearing you fine, but we're just not seeing you. That is the
that's
issue
no
right now. Caller, we'll take your call at the end of the program. Sorry to cut you so short, but
All right.
we got to jump back into the live. Thanks again for your input. Guys, we're waiting on the technical guys there at Jerry Edwin Camp to fix their technology a bit so we could
I
get
am
video.
here.
Right?
Yes.
We have no problem hearing him, but we just can't see him. All right. Yeah, guys. So that poses a big issue. That it poses a big problem if the security. And people might say, well, why do we need to secure big people? It's big people. People should know. And you're right. People should take the responsibility to stay in quarantine because that's the responsible thing to do. Because you don't know that, you might infect your family member. You might infect your mother, your grandmother, a close family member. So it's for your good and for your own family good. I remember I went to Canada and I did a series of videos in Canada. The quarantine restriction there is freaking strict. It is strict. They call and they check up on you, but it's on you. It's on you as a person to say, you know what? I'm going to adhere to this. I'm going to quarantine myself. I'm going to stay. I'll make sure that I don't infect the next person. All right. And so big people are supposed to understand these things. Right. And those are some of the questions that we're going to pose as to the security and stepping up possibly on the security, because this situation right here could basically catapult into a very, very bad situation, right? Because if they say statistically that one person could infect like about 35 people, think about possibly, because we don't know for a fact, how many people that he might have come in contact with during the time frame that he went there and he went here or wherever the case might be. I'm not sure, or you know, as to tracking as to where he went, but people did say that they saw him in different places. So who knows how many people right now might be walking around asymptomatic, spreading the virus on a daily basis to someone, right? No one knows what it is right now, and that is a massive, big.
Okay, I think we are back on now.
Okay. All right.
Yes?
Let me just unmute myself and
We are back on now?
yeah, Edwin, we could hear you pretty well. We could hear you. We just can't see you. So just go right ahead, sir. This is
Okay,
Junior.
thank you very much.
All right.
I wanted to continue to say that the patient drove himself back when he was told to do so by the health officials. Someone has a audio on. Please turn on your audio. And when he did go back, he was given a second PCR test and he tested positive again. Now, there are persons who are providing meals to him. And if this is to be believed, he is a positive COVID-19 patient. Yes? However, there is absolutely no protocol being followed. Mr. COVID-19 patient 25 is seen daily by an individual from the Ministry of Health. That person is not wearing a gown. That person is not wearing gloves. That person is wearing a mask. No, either the Ministry of Health does not believe its own report, or there are other reasons that the patient is being kept. I'm trying to understand it because I don't. To date, there has been no report given or shown to my client, patient 25, that says he has tested positive. All he receives is a telephone call. You have tested positive. I hope you can understand his and mine, let me say. I am equally disturbed because I would think for something as serious as the world's deadliest pandemic, this is a global pandemic. Grenada may not have all of the technology to treat such a patient, but my God, we should at least know that if someone tests positive for this deadly virus, they should at least be seen by persons that are wearing gloves. They should have gowns. But even more importantly, this patient should have a report before him that says, patient, you are PCR positive. All he hears is a voice at the other end of the telephone. His family, man has a family in Canada. He has young children. He has a mother here in Grenada. He has 6 brothers and sisters. They are concerned because there are things being said on social media that are absolutely false. And I just mentioned at least 2 of them. He didn't run away from the quarantine. He didn't take a taxi. He got into his car and he and another individual left. Ladies and gentlemen, there has been no action, no statement, no comment made about the other individual who left with him. So all the stories we are hearing, in fact, I heard one where they say he went to a party in Hermitage. Let us say categorically, this is false. False. I read in the newspaper, the online newspaper, that there is a company, a construction company that shut down. I heard there is a school that shut down. My thinking is they should trace all the villagers in Hermitage, everybody in Mount Rich, everybody in Tivoli. But that is absurd, isn't it? The message from the top, and I'm saying the top, the Ministry of Health has been irresponsible and uncaring. But I think it's because the Minister of Health did not have reliable information. He probably listened to social media. And that's not the way we should proceed. Not in something as deadly as a COVID-19 case in Grenada, where we are boasting and Grenadians are all relieved. We don't have the virus. But if we are told that an individual, if we are told, I have to switch my phone around again. Let me try it this way. If we are told that an individual is COVID-19 positive, at least he's not left in a room with no one to visit him. Ladies and gentlemen, the only visit this man had was from a nurse who brought him a thermometer and said, use this thermometer and check your temperature. I know Grenada better than that. I know we're better than that. I know we could do better than that. If this is a patient who is suffering from, who has tested positive, what medication is he receiving? We'll talk about that at another point, but what has the Ministry of Health done to ensure that in the event this man tests negative, when his PCR turns up negative, what intervention, if any, what medical intervention? I have heard, now we are tracking, let me say this to all the persons on social media who think this is an opportunity to just talk. Let me be clear. You have posted photographs in violation of this individual's privacy. We have checked so far, we have over 500 separate computer IP addresses. If you don't know, ask somebody. Don't just start talking. Don't impugn this person's character. Don't say what you don't know. A person is entitled to their privacy. We are calling on the Ministry of Health and the COVID team to do what you should do when you have PCR positive patients. Test them every day. Every day. Test them every day. Do not put Grenadians at risk. Certainly do not put this person at risk of wrong and improper information being said about him. So there is false information about him leaving the stopover hotel, because that is not a quarantine center. There's false information about him leaving, and that ought to be corrected. And those of you who think this is an open opportunity to say whatever you will, please be guided. This is a man with a family, young children, family here in Grenada. And the minute he heard that a test had come back positive, that man drove straight back. He followed the instructions of the Ministry of Health. Now, the Minister of Health has gone on national television and called the man an idiot. I hope, it's unfortunate, I hope he would retract that statement. That is not the responsible thing to say. And I am not here to tell anyone that I think that patient 25 should have left, jump in his car on his own accord. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it is false to say that he ran away. Grenadians should know that this man had a negative PCR test. That's why he got on the airplane. And if he turned positive between the time that he got on that plane and the 4 days that ensued, well, everyone on that plane should be tested. Instead, we have a hysteria in the north of our country. I heard people saying Tivoli, Hermitage, Montrich, that's a hot zone. And anybody who was outside their home and construction and school work, we could do better than that, Grenada. We can do better than that. And those of you on social media making comments impugning a person's character, you know COVID is no respecter of persons. And by the way, there's such a thing called a false positive test. What should happen now? That man's viral load should be checked daily. His blood should be checked daily. It's not happening. I am certain by the time we are finished here, I'm certain that measures are going to be put in place for him to receive that PCR test daily, because Grenadians are on edge. They have false information. So we want to correct that. We want to say there is no medical intervention being done now. And as the world knows, one turns negative to positive with COVID-19 every day, everywhere around the world. So let us please stop this hysteria. I urge the Ministry of Health to continue to do testing on this young man, so that we want to know when he turns negative, when his PCR test comes back negative, and he can go home. In fact, his wife and family in Canada are telling him, just as soon as you get out, just come to the airport and go home. It's a Grenadian man. He's been coming to Grenada every year for the last 19 years where he lives in Canada. He's a professional at home. He's an educated man. He is a responsible person. So when they called him and told him his test was positive, he did not wait. He didn't go frolicking. He drove himself straight back to the hotel. I'll take any questions that anyone has for me at this point.
Jerry, I have a question. Could you hear me?
I can. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So this is Right Along Live here. We have a number of questions, Mr. Edwin. I'll just go at least 3 questions and then I'll probably break it up and then ask another series of questions, sir. First question, sir. Did the test that patient 25 received, was it the test from Canada, was it falsified documents? Also, we want to find out, you said that he did breach.
I beg your pardon? I beg your pardon. Was it falsified?
Yeah. Is there any evidence? Is there any evidence? There have been some media reports that the documents that you received from Canada was some sort of falsified document. Could you clarify that statement for us, sir?
I would really like to know the media house that did that, because lawyers do a thing called lawsuits.
Okay.
So
you're saying
I would
no,
like to see that, because that is patently unclear. I will release a redacted copy of the medical report from Canada as soon as we are done here, so that you, Junior, can post it on your site.
Okay. Did he knowingly breach protocol, sir? Because you said that he stayed there for 4 days.
The protocol required him to stay in quarantine for 4 days. And for 4 days, he was in quarantine. Undoubtedly.
Did he get approval?
People brought him food. His family came to visit him. So yes, he remained in the facility not a facility, a small hotel, open doors for 4 days. He did not breach the protocol.
Was he given permission to leave?
There was no one there to say you can leave or you cannot leave. It was a telephone call.
Well,
yes, we contacted them by telephone, and he said, when can we get the test results? Because all 5 people were saying, hey, we're not hearing anything. This is the 4th day. And they started calling from around 5 o'clock at the end of the business day on the 4th day. And yes, by 7 o'clock, when they had not heard anything, 2 of those people got in their cars and left for their respective places in Grenada.
But isn't it that he's supposed to be given permission to leave after that quarantine would have been completed? So if he didn't get approval to leave, it's like they didn't approve him that he could leave, but he left on his own accord.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we said. He spent the 4 days. He and the others asked for their test. They told them, you'll get it by 5 o'clock, then you'll get it by 6, then you'll get it by 6:30, you'll get it by 7, and they got nothing. And at around 7:30, he and another person got in their cars and they left.
Wouldn't that be breaching protocol? They
spent the 4 days. Should they have all waited for their test? Of course.
Right.
He and the other person should have waited for their test.
Isn't that the big question? If he breached protocols or not? That is the question. Did he get assurance? Did he get approval to leave at the point in time? And your answer is no. So he breached protocols. Yes or no?
You're not hearing anything. My client is saying he left without the test results. He did not breach the protocol. Let's be clear. The protocol says you have to remain in quarantine for 4 days. He remained in quarantine for 4 days. But Mr. George, he and another individual, before they got their results.
Right. So
but let me also what you're asking is a very important point, and it requires a complete answer, not a short answer, not a shotgun answer, something more of a rifle, because the results were not available until several more days. When the results were available, and they told him that he tested positive, that young man immediately drove right back to where they told him to go.
Yeah, I understand. I don't mean to punks on this like a basketball, but it comes back to leaving pending a positive test. 4 days pending. I mean, pending a negative result. So if
No, not pending a negative result, pending any result.
right,
He and another individual left before they received their results.
but isn't that the identical situation that we're trying to figure out here? He left before there was a positive result.
People, you want to say that he left? I told you, we're not arguing that point.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So the man left after the 4 days they told him he had to spend in quarantine. The protocols required 4 days, and so he remained there for 4 days. And at 7:30 on the 4th day, he left before he got his test results. When they got the test results and they called him and told him he was positive, he then drove right back to where they told him he had to be.
All right, I'm going to move on with the last question, and then I'll give someone else an opportunity. Approximately how many people did he expose himself to, or was he exposed to? Do you have any idea?
Well, let's see. Let's count all the people on the plane. Let's count the people at the Morris Bishop Airport. Yes? So let us also count every single person that was in the quarantine with him. Let's count every family member that came to visit him and brought him lunch. We should also count the person who visited him, the nurse. We should also count the person who brought him meals after he came back when they told him his test turned out positive. I think we should count everybody in Mount Rich, everybody in Tivoli, everybody in Hermitage. So you see, we can take this to quite an absurd level, because our position is that right now, today, that gentleman may be PCR negative. How do we know? We don't know, because no test was done today. Yes? We don't want the paranoia about this, because we think that's where we have gone. I've heard that there's a soup spot where he visited, where everybody from a construction company, that's 150 people, I'm told. So it is the proportion of absurdity to which this has been blown is as a result of incorrect information. And we are saying that more stringent procedures should be put in place. Right now, the man has no medical intervention. He's in a room, likely listening to this to us today. Now,
right. I understand. I'm gonna give it up to someone to ask.
Okay, I have questions, please. Can I go now?
Go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. The Minister of Health as well as the Chief Medical Officer did say between Monday and Tuesday, both of them, that legal action will be taken against your client and some other people. I think the person who also left on that day with him and so on. Can you tell me whether or not, as his attorney, you have been informed by the DPP? I'm told that's who's handling the matter. Whether he's been formally charged with anything, and also to what extent have you been in touch with your client? You're saying that he has not had any medical intervention in isolation. I know there's a system where they wait for 4 days, I believe it is, before they test. Now, about 2 hours ago, the Minister of Health said to me that swabs were taken today to test the people he came in contact with. So did your client say he was swabbed today?
That is correct. We know that is correct. We know that the swabs were taken of the immediate family members that they think he had been in touch with. But today he himself was not tested. In fact, he is in an ordinary room, not even a medical facility. I don't know. I think that before, when early on during the lockdown, we had persons who had tested positive placed in, as you say, Ms. Ferrer, in isolation. It's, but, and again, we don't know, and this is where we have to depend on journalists, whether or not this was a medical facility that these people were placed in, whether there was any daily checkup on them. Because from Sunday until yesterday, no medical doctor visited the patient. I don't know if it's because Mr. Steele called him an idiot. I don't know if it's because the PCR test is unreliable. All I know is no medical intervention. Just a nurse showed up with a mask over her face and a thermometer without a glove for a COVID-19 positive patient.
Oh, okay, so before you answer the one about the legal action with the DPP, just tell me, are you aware of where your client is being held? Did he say where he's being kept in isolation?
Yes, I know where my client is being held. And
Is he at the hospital?
It's definitely not a medical facility of any kind.
Okay. So the legal action, have you been informed of any legal action? Has he been arrested, charged, or anything like that?
No. I would be surprised if that happens when the dust clears. I'd be surprised, but no, he's not at this time been charged. I'd be surprised if he is charged. Really, what he needs is medical intervention. We're talking about a medical issue here. Our Public Health Act is what kicks in. Yes? This person needs medical intervention. He's a medical patient. That's what he is. He's not a fugitive. He's not a fugitive.
But you yourself, you know, at the last news conference, I raised this issue with the minister as to whether or not there was some sort of ambiguity with the time frame for quarantine, testing, and release, because people are asked to book for 4 days. But there's a process that takes at least 5 to 6 days to be completed. Tests are 24 to 48 hours.
That is correct.
For result to be given. So at the end of day 4, you can't expect to have received your test results.
Miss Faria, you have put your finger on the point. That is the point. You are told to quarantine for 4 days. You book the quarantine. You pay for it. But you don't have test results. There are no test results. So what happens after 4 days? What happens is you are told, go home, we'll get in touch with you. That is what happens. There's no lawsuit coming here. There's no lawsuit. There's no, this breach, this alleged breach of the protocol did not occur.
So as an attorney looking at the situation, although I was told that the document signed at the airport says 14 days quarantine. So there's a lot of, one thing is saying one thing, another thing is saying something else. As an attorney, do you feel that there's any legal recourse for you should your client be charged based on the protocols themselves and the way they're written?
Well, the black and white of the protocol, and that was that everyone who boards a plane outside of Grenada sees is what will depend on. It is clear. The ink is written in black and white, and it's in English. It says quarantine for 4 days. Yes? And so they quarantined for 4 days until 7:30 on the 4th day, 7:30 p.m. Believing, of course, that they would have gotten their results. But results are not given in 4 days. So maybe Grenada needs to adjust the quarantine period upwards so that it can match the time for a test result to come back.
Okay. And also earlier on, you said that the gentleman stayed in the same room as someone else at the quarantine facility?
Yes, let's listen. We are giving it a fancy name. This was no quarantine facility in the way that ordinary persons would understand a quarantine. When I In fact, I was surprised when if someone tells me that I am going to be in a quarantine facility, I'm thinking you are kept separate and apart from anyone else. You cannot have visitors, but that's not the case. Grenada's version of the quarantine facility means that your cousins can come and bring you food every day. In fact, Grenada's version of the quarantine means that after you get a positive PCR, someone can come to you and bring you food, hand you food without a glove, without a gown, just a mask. That's our version of quarantine.
Okay,
So the fancy name of, it implies a facility that is closed. It implies a place where there's no contact with anyone. Quite the opposite. They lived for 4 days, the patient and his cousin, and slept on the same bed. That's Grenadian quarantine for you.
Well, I
Can I
mean,
ask a question?
it is our new system of tourism. It's our new tourism product anyhow. So I'll go on the second round. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Edwin, I'd like to ask, would your client be doing any legal action against the government or whoever it may be because of what your client have been through?
No. My client simply wants to go home. He misses his family. He sees things that are said about him on social media. There are people who are putting his... For this man wants one thing: peace of mind. He wants peace of mind. He's being described as an outlaw in the media, a pariah, public enemy number one. No, he doesn't want any beef with the government. And I would advise him there is no fight there. But he does not want to fight. He simply wants to be with his young children and his wife. But he knows that his PCR test has to be negative first. So he's awaiting those results. And we're optimistic because of some intervention that...
Yeah, it should be okay.
Shalon, could you mute your mic, please? Go ahead, Mr. Edwin.
That he has no interest in bringing suit against the government of Grenada. If anything, he would like to bring suit against the people who have been saying negative things about him. Like how he ran away. Like how he's an outlaw. Yes, and then he went and spread the disease all over Grenada. I guarantee you, Grenada will remain COVID negative after this sordid episode is over. I guarantee you that. Because the man got on a plane with a PCR negative test and stayed in a room and in a building with many other people, all of whom test negative. But for safety, we urge the Ministry of Health to follow their protocols, do blood testing, check his viral load. Because, COVID has a way, this beast called COVID has a way of attacking asymptomatic persons. Yes? Asymptomatic persons. It attacks those people who have positive PCRs by attacking their vulnerable, the viral system and their blood. So you have to check that to make sure they're okay. But I'm sure by the time we're finished, the Ministry of Health, we have some wonderful doctors here in Grenada on the COVID-19 team. And I really urge them to do the testing on this patient so that Grenadians can have peace of mind. It did not help that the minister has opined with the kind of harsh language that he did not help the situation at all.
Understanding that your client is said to be asymptomatic, did he find out because of that condition, does he actually need medicine? Because I believe, or based on what I understand, I'm not a professional here, that medicines are given to persons who have symptoms of COVID-19. And because your patient does not have any symptoms, does it mean that he needs medicine? Because you said he was not getting any. So does he?
Well, here in Grenada, we have a lot of natural medicines. We call them prophylactics. In the rest of the world, the entire world is using prophylactics against COVID-19. Yes, and in fact, right now as we speak, he has been provided with a natural prophylactic. And we believe that this particular prophylactic will soon turn his PCR negative, but we'll see in the days ahead. I'll let you know in the days ahead.
My final question, just to touch on it, somebody touched on it before. You spoke about the 4 days. Now, based on what I've heard over the past few days, and even prior to that, the Minister for Health and the CMO continues to say that they're asking persons to book flight for a minimum of 4 days. Not 4 days, but a minimum of 4 days. And he continued to explain this week that he said a minimum of 4 days because the test results after that 4th day can come to the person longer. So it still does it still give your client the right to leave on the 4th day?
It is simple. Change the protocols. What is a person to be guided by, if not the actual protocols? That's what I will be guided by. If I go to the United States and I am told that I must be, and I must say that the requirements are, as I see them, they say that I have to be quarantined for 5 days. I know it does not mean 3 days, and it does not mean 7. It means exactly what it says.
Mr. Edwin, the key word here is minimum. So if someone says that you have to be quarantined for a minimum of 4 days, it means that 4 days could go longer than, it could be more than 4 days. So sure. Your client should expect to go,
it could be a month. It could be a month. It could be 2 months. Yes? The responsibility of health officials and people who are in charge of our borders is to tell folks coming in exactly. Because remember, we had 14 days before. It wasn't 13 days. It wasn't 16 days. It was 14 days. And the wise men and women who are in charge of this process reduced it to 4 days. What is a traveler to do?
That was my third question, Mr. Edwin, because I can see that you with that.
Are there any more questions? Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, sir.
All right. I just want to say something on the point that this lady just was making and the point what Junior George was making.
Can you identify yourself, please, sir?
Okay, my name is Sheldon McEwen from the US, and I'm following this very closely. And,
are you a member? Are you a member of the press?
No, I'm a member of the family.
Which family?
I'm talking about COVID-25 family.
All right, hold on 1 minute. Let's let the press get in their questions first. Hold on, sir. Anyone else from the press?
Yeah, if no one else, this is Junior George again from Right Along
Yes,
Live.
Mr. George.
All right, so I during the time I got a chance to go through some information here as it relates to quarantine procedures. I want to read you a section 7 here. It says that during this stay, guests who wish to leave the pure, safe travel accommodation and interact with the public must have a PCR test done on the 4th day of their stay, and will be allowed to venture outside of the accommodation if the result is negative. PCR results are usually ready within 1 to 2 days, 2 working days. So 2 days after, right? And also section 4 of that says all passengers will be required to spend up to 7 days at an approved accommodation. I don't want to keep pouncing on this, but
no, but let's go back to the first day then. So there was a test on the first day. The result was not available on the second day. It wasn't available on the third, and it was not available on the fourth day. Right?
Right.
They were instructed that they had to book this room for 4 days. Not just my client, but the other 5 people. And they did. They paid in advance. No one told them it was 6 days. No one told them it was 7. They told them you have to book for 4 days. And they did. And on the 4th day, they had no results.
But it did,
and they called.
But they were not
and
given.
at 7:30 in the evening, 2 of them left.
Yes, I understand.
I want to go on record.
Yes, I understand that.
They did not follow the rule, not for the protocol, but in leaving. Because I wanted to be clear, they followed the protocol. But should they have waited for the results whenever it came along? Of course. If it took 6 days or 7, of course. And who would pay for the room? The government of Grenada?
But that was stipulated. Okay, Mr. Edwin, I think that I've exhausted my attempts to get the full point of it. But I guess the underlying question here is the fact that this person left before they were given permission to leave. They left before they got a clear negative test. They left on their own behest, whether they drove, whether they walked or run or took a taxi. It doesn't matter. They left before they were given permission to leave. And
yes,
that is my
yes.
that is the big question.
Yes,
and why and,
we
that
concede
is responsible.
That. We concede that.
Right, and that's what we're saying, and that's what I'm saying. Is a high level of that's not responsible of an adult to do so, because by doing so he would have probably infected other people, not knowing and not given permission to leave. So
No. You're speculating now.
Okay.
You are speculating that by leaving without getting a test, that automatically he infected persons.
No, quite possibly. So I'm saying it's a possibility because he doesn't know the results.
A lot of things are possible. Yes? It's possible that the result is a false positive too. It's possible. It's possible. So we don't want to talk about what is possible. We want to say what is a fact. As a result, the Ministry of Health is conducting swabs of the persons that he was in close contact with. A lot of things are possible. But we cannot speak when it comes to a public health issue. We cannot speak about what is possible. We can say what actions were taken that were wrong. And we've conceded that no, my client should have waited.
No, period.
Yes.
Period. No,
yes,
no,
he should have waited.
That's it. That's it.
He should have waited.
That's it. Nothing else. Perfect.
But to say that, but do not say that he broke the quarantine protocols, because he did not.
All right. That's all my question.
I have another question. You said, and quite confidently, that you don't believe that any legal action will be taken against your clients. Can you explain a bit more? Because
no, who knows what lurks in the minds of lawyers? Yes.
Well, the minister.
Listen, my confidence may be misplaced. But
You
we are
did
prepared.
mention something about
Let
some
me
sort
say,
of intervention.
just for completeness, let me say we are prepared to deal with legal action should they be instituted by any of the officials and the authorities in Grenada. We are prepared to deal with that.
Okay, but you have admitted that he did leave without permission, and
Absolutely.
The ambiguity of the minimum 4 days and stuff like that. You know, people are being told you need money for a minimum of 4 days to stay in a hotel. 5 days, 6 days, as you said a while ago. Who pays for the room? This has been bothering me for a while. How, you know, what happens if somebody can't pay for the room on day 5 or day 6? Do they get tossed out? Does the Ministry of Health pick up the tab? And those appear to be holes to me in our system.
Or let me respond by saying, why not say that as they did earlier during April, May, June, July, or why not simply say August when we opened up Grenada, July when we opened up Grenada, August? Why not simply say you must remain in quarantine for 14 days?
The official protocol speaks of longer periods, except that in the tourism industry advertisements that we are doing that is linked to the whole quarantine situation, 4 days is being advertised. That's what's being promoted. 4 days at these guest houses and so on. So, which creates a bit of a situation with financial, people's financial means and so on. Somebody might prepare to stay for 4 days and they cannot stay longer. I mean, I know someone personally who encountered that problem. So, but what I'm getting at, sir, you admitted your client left without permission. So all of the holes in the Minister of Health system aside, I would still like to get a deeper answer from you on why you believe that he will not be charged. Because just as of a few hours ago, the Minister of Health said that they are confident in their position that this man committed breaches that are actionable, criminally actionable.
If my client committed any breach, it is not a breach of the protocol. It is that after abiding by the protocol, he left. Should he have waited? Yes. Did he follow the protocol? Yes.
But part of the protocol, sir, says that you will be allowed to leave with a result.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Edwin, as Kalish touched on that, I have a document in front of me which points out, well, it's basically what your client would have been presented with to agree with. I have that document in front of me here, and in the 4th bulletin, and I can read this for you, it says, all other countries' negative PCR tests requires within 7 days. Children 5 and under are exempted. Right? It says a minimum of 5-day reservation at approved accommodation for observation and quarantine. Visitors on day 4 have the option to get a PCR test to be allowed into the community or remain at the hotel for the duration of their visit. Now, if that person opts to go into the community, they must receive confirmation of a negative PCR test and clearance from health officials. Residents on day 4 must receive confirmation of a negative PCR test and clearance from the health officials before going home. Now, did your client check and follow that entire protocol? Is not the protocol the rules?
My client left an unsecured facility where he was quarantined, and that's quarantined with a small q, with other persons, one of whom he slept on the same bed with. And while he was in quarantine, Grenadians were coming to bring him meals every day. So we can see things on a piece of paper and read it, But in practice, what happened? In practice, don't people go? I mean, I've had clients come to my office from Canada, and they did their 4 days. I'm sure they got their results on the 4th day or the 3rd day or the 2nd day, but they remained for 4 days, and then they came into the community. The Ministry of Health is not even as good as the restaurants. The restaurants, when you go in, they take your name, they take your telephone number, they say where you tell them where you live. An unsecured facility where Grenadians could come and go every day. And you are now going to castigate him for leaving. Listen. Why? Just think about this. Let's think about this. The client and his cousins were still at the village every day. What is that while he was positive? No. He wasn't in the village when he was positive. He and his cousins were in the village while their test result had not come in. Yeah, there was no result. They had no result. They received absolutely no result. He and his cousin, he was in touch with his cousin is still in the village. So, you want to prosecute somebody? Prosecute the hotel owner for having an unsecured facility for persons who may have the world's deadliest pandemic. Prosecute the Ministry of Health for not having a health officer at the facility. What facility? It's an open hotel. Prosecute them for allowing a nurse ungloved to visit the patient without a gown, and the person who's giving him a meal without a gown. Did he come down on the airplane alone? So what about them? Let's deal with this practically. I know the COVID-19, listen, I was one of the people, I had colleagues who said it was against the Constitution to lock down Grenada. I don't know if you recall. I was the first to say, Constitution be damned. I want to be alive to protect the Constitution. So don't tell me about the Constitution says this and the Constitution says that. We want to be alive. And what I hear being expressed by the person is listen, you give people bad information in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, you'd have the kind of hysteria you have now. Instead, we need to have clearer rules. If you tell a person 4 days, 4 days. I want to reiterate, but don't tell me that because the man left at 7 o'clock, that somehow we spread COVID-19 in Grenada. No. He had no result. There was no test result for him or any of the other persons. No result for them. And if he was an outlaw, the government would not have been able to call him. They wouldn't have his phone number. They wouldn't know how to reach him. But as soon as they called him, that man went right in.
Mr. Edwin, one final question from me, I believe. Do you believe that the practices of the protocol aside, keep quiet, Mom, he's in a news conference. Do you believe that the practices of the Ministry of Health, the traffic that's allowed in and out of the facilities, the type of facility, the delay in getting test results, all of those things that we've discussed here. With all of that, do you believe that the Ministry of Health is enabling the...
No, I would never say that. No. I know the head of the COVID team well. He is an eminent medical practitioner. In fact,
I am not suggesting it deliberate, but I'm saying the way that it is set up, the way that things are happening, do you believe that we need to have things are happening in order to better protect us?
If now the Ministry of Health in Grenada, the combination of the efforts of our national security minister, the combination of policy that came out of the Ministry of Health, with our border patrol, with our border control, with the social distancing, the mask wearing. I hear some people say Grenadians are not following. I bet you Grenadians are maybe outside of the Asian countries, maybe China and Japan and Taiwan. Grenadians might be wearing masks more than any other country in the world. Certainly more than Canada and certainly more than the United States. We are wearing our masks. But if the Minister of Health or the Ministry of Health says a person ought to go into quarantine, then by God, create a proper facility. You can't have a walk-in facility where people can cook their oil down in Tivoli and bring it all the way down in St. George's for people to, the people in quarantine to have a meal, to listen to music, and say, watch now, give me a 5 boy, I'm going to see you in 2 days. To touch each other. This is the Grenadian version of quarantine. So I believe that we ought to, if we are going to have quarantine procedures, that we ought to beef it up a bit. Not a single person on the plane. Not a single person in quarantine, including the person who slept on the bed with my client. Patient 25, not one of them test positive. If we need to do anything at all, it's maybe we need to check our testing.
Hi guys, a mouthful said there. Wait.
Family that needed to ask a question, sir, or to say something if you're still there, please, because I believe we're running down on time.
No,
please.
you can do that in private, Mr. Edwin. I believe that's most appropriate. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
But since the gentleman was willing to come on publicly and speak, maybe the members of the media can also have the benefit of what he has to say. Dr.
I agree. Young man, hush your mouth. We will talk privately. I think as a family member, he probably is concerned. After speaking to several family members, they all have the same concern. Yes, this man's, their family, their husband, their brother, their uncle, his photograph has been splattered all over media as though he's an outlaw. Listen, there are people who left the facility without their test results, you know. I'm going to say that because I want somebody to think they can prosecute him. There are other people who were allowed to leave at the facility, and I'll leave it here, without their result. They got their result a few days later, and it was negative. Yeah? A quarantine facility is a particular place. You don't have open doors. You don't have mixing among the persons there. Because now we probably have to check all of Grenada. Because patient 25 and the other persons at the so-called quarantine facility were mingling freely. So let's not dig a hole and try to throw this man in. He was frustrated. I waited 4 days. You can't give me a result? We're going into almost the full week, and he has not seen his result. How would you feel? How would you feel? Those of you who are looking and listening, how would you feel? Somebody tell you you're COVID-19 positive, and you can't see your name on a piece of paper or a test result that says you're positive. Give it to the nurse. Let her bring it to him. He can't see it. He never saw it. Isn't he entitled to? Isn't a patient entitled to see a confidential medical record? Aren't they? Aren't we? In the United States, we treat medical records as completely private record. What the United States? Here in Grenada, I cannot call a doctor and ask for anybody else's report. Is the cousin positive? Why are people saying that everybody's in contact with a potentially positive? And the cousin, is the cousin positive? The cousin he spent the night on the bed with? Donald Trump was in the Rose Garden, stood up next to his press secretary, had meetings with her. They didn't sleep in the same bed. She tested positive. They were outdoors. 16 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House and the Rose Garden, they tested positive. So we want to ask ourselves, are we going to hang this man because he left without the permission of the authorities? When other persons left with the permission of the authorities, but they did not have a test? Come on. Come on, people, listen to yourselves. Let's listen to ourselves.
Mr. Edwin, did the health officials call his cousin because they couldn't reach him? Why did they call his cousin? It seems unusual to call out.
Yes, you'd have to ask them. You'd have to ask them. Because, let's suppose they didn't, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They couldn't find him. But somehow they had his cousin's telephone number. God knows how. But they had his cousin's number. Why not say to his cousin, we're trying to reach the patient? Listen, can you ask your cousin to call us? We need to talk to him. There's something we need to say to him. That didn't happen. Hey, cousin, let me release you.
All right, welcome to Ride Along Live, guys, and we're going to digest and put all of this stuff into perspective. Yeah, we're going to go straight on, guys, with the program, so we want you to stay with us. I want you guys input on this, and to the cousin, Sheldon, I believe, you could call us in live on this phone so we could talk a little bit more. The number that you could call in right here, Sheldon, if you want to talk to us, in fact, we want to talk to you, 718-701-5720. So, Sheldon, you could call us in right here, right now. This is Ride Along Live, and we're reacting to all that was said here just a few minutes ago by the lawyer, attorney Jerry Edwin, representing patient number 25. We got a lot to discuss, a lot to digest. Keep the number, and we're going straight right now. Also in Grenada, we have Mashida Philip. She is currently in Grenada inside a quarantine facility, and she will tell us all about how quarantine works and how it's working for her. And we have a lot to talk about, guys. Earlier today, just a little while ago, we saw extensive broadcast there, press briefing there by Mr. Jerry Edwin in reference to his client allegedly, leaving the facility before he was given approval to do so, right? Now, a lot of people have been speaking about it. There have been speculation in various mediums that they wanted to verify that the document that he came in with was not a falsified document. We are going to look into that and find out details on that document. Mr. Edwin did say that those documents will be provided to us, and we are looking forward to see those documents. Also joining us is Jan Jan. She is joining us to dissect everything. Let me move over here a little bit, dissect everything that was on the program here today. So first, let's start with you, Ms. Shida. Ms. Shida, you are in Grenada right now, and you are inside of a quarantine facility. Ms. Shida,
That's
tell
right.
us what was the process like from you landing at Maurice Bishop International Airport and being taken to that quarantine facility. Walk us through the process.
Basically, I guess the whole flight you're supposed to wear your mask in flight the entire time. When you decline, you have to go through. You have to sanitize your hands before actually getting into the lobby area where they're allowing us to sign up all of the necessary documentation and approve. So basically, the holdings area, and you're assigned a number. And with that, you have the administration or assistants going around having you, assisting you in filling out the forms and verifying all of the information. Because two things you must have when you land, it's your PCR test results, and you have to have a confirmation as to where you're going to be going to do your quarantine. So they need to verify those information. So once all that is done, you go to the nurse's station, and that's just an additional step that is different from our norm in coming and going straight to customs.
Before we go into that, let me ask you a question. The document that you come from the US with, that document that says that you had a negative PCR test from the US, how does that document get checked? Who checked that document?
Well, the nurses check the document as well as the people assisting you on the ground. They are looking to verify the date of the test. They're looking for the facility that you're getting your results from. So that's the depth of where it is going. And I saw some people actually going into like stations where they're actually testing people. So I'm assuming that maybe they're a couple days shy of the actual required time that you need to be tested before entering the country. So I did not inquire. I just wanted to get out and come home because I was tired.
Did you have to verify that document before you board the aircraft?
Not in New York. Not in New York at all. They allow you to get on the plane.
How could someone in Grenada, what measures do you think that they take to ensure that those documents are not falsified documents?
I'm not sure. I think they're going based on the depth and the honesty of people coming in. I think we all looking to come home or come to Grenada for a vacation, whatever. So I think the onus is on the individuals coming in, but I'm not sure how they're going to verify that because there are so many different facilities. There are so many different doctors doing the tests. There is not like one standardized place that they can do the checking. So I think it's going to be impossible for them to say, this is how we are verifying the documentation. And especially in this era where most of your documentations is coming via, or your results is coming digitalized from your doctor's office. So I think it's a little bit difficult for the government here or the people who's actually doing the work to test that or check that out.
Tell us about maintaining that bubble, Mashida, because you came off the airplane, you were taken to the quarantine facility. How do you keep into that bubble so you don't interact with the other parts of the population? How is that maintained? All right, Mashida video stuck. Let's bring in Jan Jan on this one. Jan Jan, you got a chance to see Jerry Edwin's press briefing earlier. I don't know how much of it you saw, but what's your reaction on what was done by patient 25? What's your immediate reaction, Jan Jan, to this?
The fact that Jerry keeps insisting that his patient did not run away. He drove away. I'm not sure if that makes it better or easier to defend, Another thing is the minimum 4 days. The minimum 4 days is crucial, because if we are walking around in the era where there's an invisible virus, and we do not know how much time it takes to show up on each person, because that is different in every case. Some people start showing symptoms very, very early. Some people start showing symptoms well into day 9, day 10, or whatever. So if you are told to stay in quarantine for a minimum of 4 days until your results get back, until they come back with your results and you're cleared to go, that is the sticking point here. You are in quarantine until the results come back and you're cleared to go. You are in quarantine until then. That is what I'm hoping that grown folks would understand. And not because it's probably Friday evening and you get bored with where you are. I mean, this is not normal times. This is the middle of COVID, or the start of COVID. We don't know where we're at in COVID. But the fact is, I mean, for everybody's safety, whoever you interact with. And then Mr. Edwin kept making some points that people came to visit him. They cook oil down, they come down to the hotel, they lime. I am thinking here that if you're in quarantine, the responsible thing to do would be a partner bringing food for you. He drop it on the step. You say to him up the step, yo, we go see in a few days. As soon as I clear to come out of here, we go take a drink or something. But come on, I'm thinking irresponsible.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear from what Mr. Edwin said that he left after 4 days, right? He left after 4 days when the regulation pretty much stated that the minimum of 4 days.
A minimum of 4 days.
Minimum of 4 days, which could, obviously it's 7 days. But so it's kind of contradicting. So I'm trying to understand his
the
analysis.
Ministry of Health needs to take some blame for that too. Because it's like putting a 3-piece bedroom set in the window and saying, get a bedroom set for as low as $299. And when you go inside, you realize you're getting the bed with no mattress. So I think it's a sales ploy that kind of backfired on them, because I think they need to make it abundantly clear. You could be in quarantine from 4 to 7 to 14 days. It's quarantine, it's COVID. We can't take no shortcuts when it comes to making that abundantly clear, because people are coming home. People clearly want to interact with their families. I mean, I don't, because my mother is elderly. I don't want to visit my cousins. I would feel so guilty if I came home and something happened like right now. I can't wrap my head around me showing up in Grenada and something like this happening. And I feel his pain. I understand. I'm sure we could all bring ourselves to forget our anger for a moment and try to understand what he's going through. It's like, it's a hostile situation, but it's almost a created hostile situation in that you did not wait for the results, which would have told you needed to be there for another 7 days, or yo, go have fun. Stop by Sandra and drink a beer and stop on the beach before you reach up, or do whatever you want because you're now cleared.
Yeah.
That's what it tells you.
Yeah. Mashida, I'll come back to you, right? Because I want to talk about that bubble that was created, that's supposed to be created to make sure that you don't interact with the wider population before you get an all clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanna see how well that bubble is being maintained. Now,
I must say, before I got cut off, sorry. When you get here, you have to fill out all the necessary custom forms in addition to the health declaration forms. So you're walking into the country. Sorry, I had to move outside so you can hear, so I can get the internet better.
Yeah.
So you have to walk in with your verification of where you're going to be actually doing your quarantining, as well as your negative records from your facility wherever you come from. But when you get here, you have to sign the declaration, and they take proper documentation, your number and everything like that, where you're going to be staying. So those things are, I was impressed by the, personally, I was impressed by the process. Is there things that they could improve on? Of course. They're just starting to reopen, and as more visitors are coming in, there will be adjustment that would be made. So that was part of it. Once we left that facility, once we left that process, we went through regular the immigration processes as normal. You saw the immigration officer, you got cleared. Then you went to one more station that they need to verify again. Where are you going to be staying? Are you going after you leave quarantine? Where are you going? So they document those things in order for them to do contact tracing, I'm assuming, or track your travels while you're here in Grenada. So that was basically it. And once you left the final destination, you had to go to a state-approved taxi who would take you now from the airport to the place that you are going to be doing your quarantining without stopping. That was my experience. Can I speak for everyone else? I'm not certain, but that was my personal experience.
How do you eat? How do you eat? Where do you get food from?
I was just about to ask her that.
Yeah.
Is anybody liming by you, Shida?
So, I had to pull down my hair, throw my hair down the balcony, and people would send it up, and I put it up. To be quite honest, where I am, there is a restaurant. I'm fortunate enough that there's a restaurant downstairs. But it could be pricey, but I'm very thankful that the restaurant is there. And I'm at the mercy of everyone else. I'm begging. Today was my second solid meal that I had. Like, I was begging all my friends and family, yo, can you drop me something? So there are things that could be improved.
Hold on one second, Mashada. We have a call on the line. So caller, just be patient, stay on the line there still. Mashada, here is a bust of the bubble right there. People coming and dropping food for you. Explain how does not affect the bubble right there.
So in my facility where I am, we are not allowed to interact with the general public. So if someone is coming to drop something for me, basically, it is left at the security, and they bring it up for us. But I'm not allowed to leave. I think the doors are locked, whatever. The most I'm going is from my apartment to maybe the rooftop, but that's about it.
Okay. All right. Hold on one second. Janice, I know you have some questions. Let's take a quick call on the line. Caller, you're live. Where are you calling us from?
Hello?
Go right ahead. Caller, you're live.
Okay, I'm calling you from Grenada.
Yes.
My name is Faye. I came in on Saturday, the 10th. I was supposed to have come in on the 3rd. The caller that you spoke to with her hair cut very short, she said that the test is not checked in the United States. The reason, when I came from the United States, the reason that I came in on the 10th is because my test was 2 days too early. So they definitely check your certificate. It has to be a certificate, not an email, because there was one guy on the 3rd, same as me, who was not allowed to fly because he had an email that said he was negative. So I'm not sure where that caller came from.
I came from New York.
Yeah, she could hear you. Okay, caller.
But in the United States, you cannot get on that flight. I'm telling you, my niece and I were traveling together. My niece left. They said to me, you cannot go. So I'm not sure where she is flying from. I'm not sure what airline she's on.
Right.
But I'm telling you, if you are coming from the United States flying on JetBlue, you do not get on the flight unless you have taken that test within 7 days.
Okay.
And when I got here, there's another test at the airport. She said it seemed to me that she was not tested again at the airport.
No, I was tested yesterday.
Saying where you are, your local contact, and you cannot. You have to have a place where you're going to stay. They have to know where that place is. I happen to be in Westerhall because I had applied to stay here.
Right.
So they are extremely strict.
Yes.
And you are told a minimum of 4 days.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Oh, you
Mr.
were?
Lawyer
Yes.
has to get his facts straight and understand that if his client is an educator, he has to understand that quarantine means quarantine. You cannot have people hanging out with you. You cannot have people coming and bring you food. They can bring you food, but if they brought me food, they put the food on the rail of the veranda and they left, and then I came and took it.
Yeah.
I was never anywhere close to the people who brought me food.
Right. Okay.
And to be hanging
that
out
is
in
true.
facilities in Grenada,
Uh,
everybody who is supposed to be in quarantine, an educator doesn't understand what the word quarantine means, doesn't understand that if you have the virus, because the day you take your test, be it in Grenada or be it here, sorry, in the United States, once you take that test, it's anything that happened afterwards. Prior to the test indicates what you were before the test. And let's say you picked up the virus the day before the test. They would not, the viral load would not be sufficient for them, for the swab to pick up the COVID-19 virus.
okay.
And let's say after the test, after your swab in the United States or Canada or wherever it be, you could pick up the virus again. So you can come down here with a negative test carrying the virus. And on the aircraft, you had to wear your mask all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what airline she flew with or what country
Okay.
she was coming from.
Well,
I'm telling
let me
you,
ask her. She's still on the line. She's still on the line.
JetBlue in New York is very strict.
Okay.
And that's how it should be everywhere.
Let's get a
Because
point of view.
now Grenada has to divert their resources to find all these people who may be infected.
Yeah.
And Mr. Edwin is saying nobody's testing positive from his client. We don't know. It has to. We need a few days before the viral load is sufficient for the virus to be picked up on a swab.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, caller. Let's take some of the response there.
Junior, I also wanted to clarify. I was not tested on the airport, but on Sunday I received a call letting me know that on Wednesday my nurse is going to come to get tested. And the caller is right. They said the quarantine time is a period of 14 days with a minimum of 4 days of being in quarantine until you get tested. In my situation, I got tested yesterday, and they do double swabs, one in the nostril and one in the throat. I'm waiting for my results. I was told that it can be within 48 to 72 hours. So I am still in quarantine. I cannot leave here until I get discharged or my release call or my release write-up or whatever it is that they're giving me. So I just wanted to clarify that. I guess some people are being tested on the airport. Personally, I received my test at the facility where I am. They did call and they did check in on me twice.
Right. Okay. Janice?
Shida, does any part of your brain tell you now that you can leave?
No. No. And you know why, Janice? Because coming from New York and being with my mom, who is an elderly person, I've been in self-quarantine for the last 8 months or so, 7 to 8 months. So this right here is nothing to me. The only thing that I feel a little bit frustrated for is the fact that I cannot get my food and do the things that I want to do in that way. But as far as my own personal responsibility, I have no idea what I picked up from the time I left, from the time I got swabbed in New York and my commute here. I have no idea what my level of exposure was. So until that can be verified for me, personally, I don't think it's right for me to be out there in public. That's just me personally.
I feel the same way. And I'm shocked that Jerry Edwin is trying to justify this in that his client waited until 7 o'clock in the evening and did not run away, as Grenadians are saying, and attacking his credibility and his person and his person. He did not run away. He got in the car and drove away, consciously so. I mean, come on, you need to be more responsible. Remember, Grenada doesn't have, Junior, we are no COVID experts. But being in New York, Junior, I live in on Eastern Parkway. The building I live in probably has 20 people that are not Jewish.
Mhm.
They don't wear masks. The children are playing outside, bare feet, hands on the ground, chilling like nothing is happening. So it is my prerogative to keep myself and my son safe. We isolate. Brandon is not going to school. He is going to school on this computer right here where I'm sitting. We have seen the refrigerated containers sitting outside the hospitals collecting dead bodies.
That was not my experience.
We have seen the effects. So yes, we're angry because we know what one case in Grenada who has almost no medical facility can wreak havoc. It can wreak havoc on Grenada. Junior, this is not a place where they can send you for an MRI, or if you show up at the hospital 20 strong or 50 strong, God forbid, they have respirators to put you on. This is Grenada. This is home, 133 square miles we're talking about. We know the limited resources that we're working with. We cannot accept irresponsibility like that. And Jerry Edwin is defending that, man? Come on.
I just got some insight here that said that persons are approved for home quarantine. Persons who are approved for home quarantine are tested at the airport. That just came into the wire right here from a credible source inside of the government of Grenada.
Because that lady went home. She went to a house in Wester Hall that was pre-checked before she got there. So it's probably why she was tested at the airport.
Probably.
Yeah. But here is something that we're not speaking much about, right? And it has to do with the security burden being placed on the facility. For this, I think is a problem. Personally, I think that to put that burden of responsibility on the facility is a mistake. Because the question that it begs, right? What type of security are at the facility? People are telling me that they could leave when they want. It is not like a stringent security that is preventing you from leaving. What type of security is there? And should there be a stricter policing of quarantine facilities? Mashida, what type of security do you have at your facility?
I think I have a top-notch security system here. I'm assuming because I work late in the night, so I see my security detail get exchanged and released. But the securities that downstairs, we don't really interact that much unless they drop my food at the door. They knock and then they let me know that my food is here. But that's the level of interaction. One thing I must say though, when we came here, what was impressive for me was the fact that all of our bags was sanitized outside of the facility. We were told to go into a tent, and then they did some level of sanitizing of the body. They did our temperature check, and then they escort you to your room, and you were supposed to stay there. So that's the depth of my interaction with any of the staffs here. To answer your question, whether the burden should be on the facilities and also the government, I think is a combined something. If you are a facility holder and you are petitioning to have your space registered as a quarantine space, there is mandates that you have to fit, right? There are certain protocols that you yourself as an owner have to check. So I think you have to ensure that you can hire the right set of help that you need to ensure that your facilities is in order.
Yeah. I want to read an excerpt here. That is section or option 7, item 7, I should say. It says that during their stay, guests who wish to leave the pure, safe travel accommodation and interact with the public must have a PCR test done on their 4th day of the stay. And they're also saying that they would be allowed to so the results. Okay, they're saying that PCR results are usually ready 1 to 2 days after. So if you have that 4 days, you have to at least elapse another 1 or 2 days in addition to your stay to see if your results come back negative or positive. As in Mashida's case, she's waiting on the final result And Mashada, you rightfully said that you're not just gonna pick up and just go Grenville as much as you want to do that.
No, I don't have $10,000 to pay. I don't want to go to nobody jail.
But not only that, the fact that you might come in contact with people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to put the community at risk. I mean, come on now. You know, I have been a model person in New York. Why would I come here and feel that the same rules and regulation doesn't apply here? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Right. All right, guys, let's get your input on this. I want you guys to call us directly, 718-701-5720. That number is on the screen right there, 718-701-5720. We want to get your experience. We want to get your view on this topic here. And what was said earlier today, as Mr. Jerry Edwin and his press briefing spoke about what happened, or tried to summarize what happened in this situation right there, identified that, yes, in fact, the person, his client did in fact leave 4 days because they didn't get that result, but he left. He didn't jump in a taxi. He actually drove his car and he left. I was trying to ascertain about how many people would he have possibly interact with, which is scary. Because I was looking at a WHO scenario that said that one person could potentially infect 35 different people, and that's crazy, because then
so that's 1 times 35 times 35 more
times 35 spreading. And if that is the case, again, this is allegations, kind of contrary to what Mr. Edwin said. But again, we have to look at the common sense approach. Like, if he was out there and he potentially had, and he was tested positive, we don't know if it's a bad positive result, but that's what the ministry is saying. If he was in fact tested positive and he's still in fact positive with a high viral load, he could have possibly infected other people, about 35 people, and unknowingly this other 35 people could infect another 35 people, and we all know the position that we'll be in. Hopefully that does not happen. Hopefully that would not happen.
I hope not.
Yeah. What was also kind of concerning when he said that he slept on the same bed with another family member, and I wanted to kind of understand why. But let's take a call and we'll be back. Caller, where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from New York.
Go right ahead, New York.
Yes. I think, it says the minimum is 4 days, not the maximum. The minimum means it's 4 days, but it can go on. They didn't say the maximum. It just says the maximum. Okay, well, that's the point I'm leaving, or whatever the case may be, is the maximum. That says the minimum, not the maximum. Mm-hmm. And therefore, again, I think that you are in quarantine. As a Grenadian citizen, they don't want you to feel like a prisoner, somebody in a Richmond Hill prison. You are there. All you need to do is be responsible. You have to look out for yourself and each other. Because your test did not come out during the 4th day, had he made a call to find out why my result is not here? I didn't hear his attorney spoke of that. That's the simple thing to do. And in my opinion, he broke the rules. The rules is for everyone, not because you come from Canada and you come to Grenada and your 4 days is up, you think you can walk around and not care, give a care about the world. It don't work like that. The rules is applied to everyone, and you know the rules before you book your flight to go to Grenada. You know what you're going to face when you get down there. So he's wrong. That's my opinion. He's wrong.
Right. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any? Let's think far. Let's stretch our minds a bit, right? Is there any reasonable explanation that would let someone feel like they should leave quarantine before getting authorization to do so? Let's stretch our mind as far as possible, because let's try to mount a defense. Could you guys think of anything?
His lawyer couldn't.
Mashada, what's the farthest stretch of your imagination you could reach to think as to why someone or yourself or anybody would reach or leave quarantine facility before the time frame that is allocated for them to do so?
I have no idea. I cannot speak. I have no idea. I really and truly don't. I can't think of anything. I think as a model citizen, as someone who, if you're a proudful individual and you want to be here, you would do what is necessary to ensure that not just the community, but also yourself remains safe. Because God forbid, if you are doing that, the next person could just do the same thing, right? And that's where you're having a whole set of problems happening here. So I can't think of a reason why. I can't think of a reason why. I mean, even as hungry as I am, I still find it hard to like break any kind of rules to say, oh my God, let me sneak out. Matter of fact, I can sneak out, but you know what I'm getting at. It's just not right. It's just not right.
718-701-5720. That's our number right here. I want to take a look at that was the minister, and that's why I believe that was an announcement made prior to that gentleman leaving this quarantine facility. Let's take a quick look at the minister's comment there. You're watching Right Along Live, extended edition.
Persons coming from those countries with no travel history from anywhere else in the last 14 days will not require a PCR test on entering and no quarantine once they pass immigration and customs at Morris Bishop International. The other classification would be low-risk countries or green zone countries, as we've referred to previously. Persons coming from green zone countries will require a negative PCR test not more than 7 days old, that is 7 days before the date of travel. On arrival, once this is verified, they will not be required to quarantine. And then the other classification, all other countries. Individuals coming from previously yellow or red zones, as we now classify all other countries, which would include Canada, the United States, the UK, most of Europe. A negative PCR test is required within 7 days of travel. A minimum of 4-day reservation. We recommend 5, but a minimum of 4 days reservation at an approved accommodation where the person would undergo their observation and quarantine. Now, this is not a paper reservation. You actually have to have physically paid reservation, which you will be required to follow through with. Visitors on day 4 will have the option to get a PCR test to be allowed into the community, that is to exit that Pure Grenada facility. If they choose not to exit that Pure Grenada facility, but would prefer to spend the rest of their time there, then they are not required to have a PCR test. The PCR test takes 1 to 2 days for the results. So individuals who have opted for the 4-day to exit, it will take another day or 2, which is why we recommend that you have a reservation for at least 5 days for quarantine. On arrival, after you've made your reservation, on arrival in Grenada, you will be required to present the forms that you have filled out on our website, which is covid19.gov.gd, and also to show proof that you have downloaded the travel app, which is Rona Track, as in coronavirus, Rona Track. It's available on the iOS and Google Play Store. I know we've had some delays on the delivery of the iOS, but I do expect it to be available within if not already, within the next day or 2. Once you have received your health clearance, if you are coming from the CARICOM bubble or a green zone, you can leave the airport however you choose. That is, you can have friends, family come pick you up, and you can leave the airport however you choose. If you are coming from the CARICOM bubble, verified 14 days or more, or green zone country directly, verified 14 days or more. All others, you must want to leave the airport, you are leaving with approved transportation to go to the approved quarantine site. we are allowing individuals under certain conditions to home quarantine. That is to say that individuals who wish to spend the first 4 days after arrival in their own home can apply for this. This application must be done at least 7 days before travel. That allows the ministry and our personnel to visit the site and verify certain criteria that must be met. And
yeah, guys, so that was the Minister of Health, Nicholas Steele, talking about the CARICOM bubble and what is to be expected when you travel into Grenada. Michelle, I wanted to ask you about if that sounds like what you experienced, but we got a call on the line. Let's take that call. Caller, you live. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from New York.
Go right ahead.
And I was one of the first people that actually went into quarantine when the borders opened. And I'm listening to all that you're saying, and I hear how this gentleman just walked out. The bottom line is sometimes we need to be very clear. 4 days is not 4 days. 4 days is you're there, and then you'll take a test, and then there's still another day or two. Make it clear that this is what is required, nothing more and nothing less. It's our safety, and people don't get that because they're always finding a loophole. I listened to that lawyer, and all he did was find a loophole, but it's our lives. So it's just about being very clear. No ifs, ands, or buts, no gray areas. Just, it's 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. I paid for 14 days, and I spent my 14 days. And still, I didn't get tested till the 14th day. So, there's always a little loophole somewhere, but I think we can do better as adults, better as Grenadians, because we want to continue to go home. If keeps shut down Grenada tomorrow, we'll all be up in arms again.
Yeah.
We can do better. We can do, we're adults, and if that gentleman was an educator, that's even worse on him. To find a lawyer, to find a loophole, 4 days. Really? 4 days. Come on.
What do you think, caller? Let me ask you a question. Do you think that they need to be a little more clear?
Yes.
They need to,
Yes.
Precise.
Yes. And yes, because right now I know someone who was told he will be in quarantine for 4 days.
Right.
And at the end of his 4th day, his expectation was that somewhere in that 4th day, he would have gotten tested. That didn't happen. Okay? You do all your paperwork here. I know you have to send your paperwork, your fax, to make sure that when you get into the airport, they have that information in front of them that you've taken that test.
Yeah.
So, sometimes the effort is wonderful. The effort is awesome because it's about our health. But on the other side of that coin, maybe we need to be sadly treated more like first graders, where, you know what? Cannot do this until I give you the piece of paper. And let's be clear, at least from my experience, there was no piece of paper that said that my test was negative when I fit into quarantine. The nurse said to me, "Oh, you're good. You could go." I had no piece of paper. So if somebody stopped me as I was moving around in the community, they said, "Well, where's the test?" I have nothing. So it's those little things that can make a difference.
Yeah. Okay, caller. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Let's take this other call here real quick. Caller, you live? Where are you calling us from?
Hi, calling from Grenada.
Go ahead, caller. So, turn on your background. Hold on, caller. Before you go ahead, could you turn your background down a bit because I'm getting a feedback.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I just want to say, I'm looking at the program, and I'm just shocked at how people are just jumping on the bandwagon and really not thinking this thing through. Because the gentleman, and Jerry, first and foremost, Jerry is an outstanding attorney. He's a critical thinker. He's U.S. trained. What Mr. Steele said, what Minister said was, there's a 4-day process that the travelers have to stay at the facility.
Right.
It's recommended. That's the key word. It's recommended for a 5th day so that any test done can come back. Now, what that means is when the fourth day is up, it's left to the traveler to leave the facility. So if this gentleman met the 4-day requirement, why are people prosecuting him? You know, this is not the traveler's issue. It's the controllers, well, the government or whoever set those rules, those parameters, to be met. He met the requirement. So you cannot blame this man because the test came back late or the test didn't come back in time. It was the 4 days. And then these people are paying for their own stay. Now, who's to say after that 4 days, he has the funds to continue living in that facility? You know? So we really need to think this thing through and just not jump on the bandwagon. I mean, the minister said it best. I mean, like he said it clearly. The 5th day is a recommendation. He did not break any law. You know, and all the other rumors, I speak to a family member of that gentleman. And all the rumors about he was on a construction site and, all of this stuff is hearsay. It's not actually true. And then, yes, he slept with family members. All of the other people in the home is not testing positive. The flight he came down on, no one else is testing positive. So are you telling me these other people immune system is so strong that nobody is nobody got this stuff? Why hasn't he been given a second test as yet? He's being held at our facility right now, right? And he has not been given a follow-up test as yet. So, I mean, there's just a number of failures here in the system. Like, you can't just go around just blaming this man. This man has a family too.
Yes.
I don't think he was irresponsible. The system failed him.
Right, caller, I understand you, and as we said, we're looking at all aspects, and that's why we like critical thinkers like yourself and other people who have different ideas and opinion. But here's what I'm talking. When we say a bit irresponsible, right? If he was not given the go ahead or the approval, or like you go to a hospital and they're checking you for your heart or your lung, right? And before they give you that paper that says you're okay to leave, that your heart or your lung is good, ready to go, you could leave, you left, right?
So yeah.
Wouldn't that be wouldn't that be irresponsible of you to leave before you got the all clear from the doctors or the authority? Just answer that question. Would it be irresponsible of you or not?
So Jerry, like, we going by what the rules are. Like, let's talk about the rules. If the rules are, you have 4 days, and after the 4 days, you have to leave, and they would contact you and give you your results. You cannot blame the individual. Those are the rules. I mean, the minister said it best. And if we are a nation of rules and laws, and you follow the law, you cannot come back and say, okay, well, he was doing this, and if we are a nation of laws and this is the law or the rule that was set down, you cannot go around prosecuting this.
No, but you didn't answer the question. I'm just asking you very clear and concise question. Would it be okay to walk out of a hospital before the doctors told you that you're okay, that your heart could handle the rest of the way? Would it be okay for you to do that?
Well, I think given the circumstances, I think
would it be okay or not? Would it be okay or not? It's very simple. Don't pense me. Don't pense me here. Is it okay or not?
Well, the issue to me is not a no or yes answer. Once again, we have to look at what the rules said and what was given in the context. Remember, this man is paying out of pocket. Who's to say that he can afford to continue staying there?
Okay, well, that's another question. That's another question. That is a whole other question. That is a whole other question, whether he could afford it or not. But the fact of the matter is, right? The fact of the matter is, if before given the go ahead or the final approval or the final release papers, right, for you to leave, for you to leave is playing Russian roulette, not only with your life but with the life of your family members, because you don't know what the final result is. We have a person on the line on the panel right now, Mashida. She's in quarantine at the moment, and she's waiting, as everybody else should, for that final announcement to say yes, you're good to go. If she pick up and leave before she get that, then it's irresponsible because she don't know Because remember, the viral load has to build up in your body, right? So they have to take several tests.
Yes.
And before that final test is given, you could be positive with a low viral load, so it doesn't show up on the first test. So the second test, and by that time, your viral load should be high enough to register on one of those tests. They do 2 tests, as Mashida just said. They do the swab in your throat and in your nose. And for her to leave right now would be irresponsible. So I don't want you or anybody to butt this or like, oh yes, butt this. It's either is it responsible or irresponsible. Is it irresponsible?
No, it is not.
Okay, it is not. So that's your position, and you're sticking to it.
Yeah, because facts remain. Facts remains. The rules and the parameters that were set allow that, Junior.
Okay.
That is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
We cannot say, okay, this is the rule, this is what we have, and then come back and prosecute someone. That's all that I'm saying.
Okay.
No, I commend her for what she's doing. She took and she went the extra mile, but she didn't have to.
Okay.
No, that's the point that I'm trying to make. So, I mean, like Mr. Steve said it clearly, Junior.
Right.
The fifth day is a recommendation. So unless we set these rules and we say, hey, this is what it is. If you break these rules, you're going to be prosecuted. You're going to charge you. We're going to take you to jail or whatever the consequences are. Then so be it. But you cannot say, okay, we give you a recommendation. You're allowed to leave after the 4 days. Then something happens.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's a misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding of the recommendation. The recommendation doesn't say you leave after 4 days. It's a minimum of 4 days, which I personally take issues with that because it said that the ministry isn't clear enough. They need to add some clarity to that.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but I don't want you to stuck on the 4 days thing. I want you to think about it as a minimum of 4 days. But listen, we have a number of calls coming in. It don't seem like I could change your mind today. But thanks for your input. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Ms. Shida, Janice, chime in here. I tried.
I think
Yes.
we're stuck on the wording. I think we're stuck. And in times like these, I think we need to call in the Ministry of Legal Affairs to work with the Ministry of Health, to work with everybody else to make sure that the wording is airtight. I mean, I'm sure they didn't think they would come across a situation like this. But now that this has arisen, I think it's time to clear the air. The minister has to clear the air with legal language. The air needs to be cleared with legal language. Get the people who write legalese to figure this out, because if it was I guess when laws and rules are written, it should be written for all to understand. The youngest child, the oldest person. So I mean, Mashida took away her understanding, right? Mashida understood that she needed to be there for a minimum of 4 days. And she cannot leave until that next result came back, not just came back, but came back negative. So I guess what the people arguing on in the gentleman's defense is saying that he did not understand that. It would have been a minimum of 4 days. And when the test results came back, if it came back negative, then he would be able to leave. If it came back positive, then I'm not sure if they're also arguing that he should also be allowed to leave if the test came back positive. I'm not sure what is going on. So, because I would think if you came back positive, you're expected to stay on. My God.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Mashida, hold on 1 second. Let's take this call. Caller, you live? Where are you calling us from?
Grenada.
Go right ahead, caller.
Okay. The last caller
Yes.
and the others to call. Here is a website, covid19.gov.gd.
Right.
There's a form called the Grenada Civil Aviation Authority International Passenger Health Declaration Form, which every passenger signs.
Mm-hmm.
For the last caller, I like the question you asked, but I will go to number 3. That I will comply with all public health measures adopted at the departure and arrival airport for anti-coronavirus 2 SARS-CoV-2/COVID-19. That I am willing to undergo all processes applicable, right, for COVID-19 testing upon my arrival at the designated airport in Grenada. That I 5. So the preceding one was 4. 5. That I will comply and will remain in quarantine or self-quarantine for 14 days as per the advice or directive. Let me say over that. As per the advice or directive of the public health officer. I am also willing and will comply and agree to pay the cost of quarantine and food as required by the relevant authorities. Number 6, I will comply with all anti-COVID precautionary measures, instructions of the cabin crew during my flight on board, so on, so on, so forth. Now, that is one form that they must complete. Okay? So there's no shortcut on this one. Secondly, for the purpose of the last caller, again, it says a minimum, it is written in black and white, and he cannot challenge that. Minister would have explained a couple things. All other countries, bullet 1, negative PCR test required within 7 days. Children under 5, you are exempted of travel. Bullet 2, a minimum of 5 days reservation at approved accommodation for observation and quarantine. It is written on the covid19.gov.gov site. So callers, before you call and make those kind of statements, you need to go and read and understand. I will repeat it. Bullet number 2, a minimum of 5 days. It does not say that you will be there for 4 days. It says you must have a reservation, and the minimum is 5 days. Bullet number 3, visitors on day 4, as Minister explained, on day 4 have the option to get a PCR test to be allowed into the country or remain at the hotel for the duration of their visit. If you opt to go into the community, you must receive confirmation of a negative PCR test. So if he had opted to go, he had every reason to await confirmation and clearance from health officials. The 4th bullet quite clearly states, residents on day 4 must, it didn't say may, it said must receive confirmation, okay? Confirmation of a negative PCR test and clearance from health officials before going home. So the previous caller, you could dance and weave and bob. It is in black and white, and every incoming passenger are obligated to sign those forms. I wish I had spoken to Mr. Edwin earlier, but when you are fixed, and the young lady who is in quarantine could tell you that, you must affix your signature onto this thing. There's a waiver of liability agreement and all of those things. And the travel, the entry protocol is clearly written. You have the CARICOM, the low-risk country, and all other countries which we spoke about, including Canada and so on. And the 4 bullets are there. A 5-year-old could read it and understand. So you could dance and wave and bob. You're not getting away with that. The fact is that you have 4 days minimum. And 4 days minimum is 4 days minimum. And it also says, as a condition of leaving, if you opt to go, right? It's not a condition. If you opt to go, you must get that negative PCR test and confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. I believe we went to St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, by the way.
I think he went to St. Rose Modern Secondary School.
Sass. Let's take that caller, then we'll discuss both topics here. Caller, you live? Where are you calling us from? Caller, you live? Okay. Caller, get cold feet. It is clear. I mean, in terms of what we saw, what we have written, and what we said, right? So whatever trade passing next to them. Yeah. It is clear, right? But the what I'm hearing here is the interpretation. I'm going to do it like the caller. Is the interpretation of the clause some people understand it a little bit differently. That's the problem here.
But Junior, you know when we're on airplanes, how many times have you signed the forms they give you on the airplane?
And don't read it.
And you don't read it.
You don't read it, Junior. You just want to come home and land, and you ain't signing, you ain't reading, going through the fine prints.
That's true.
That's one of the things that we trust the airlines with, and we just have to put our signature to it.
Yeah.
Come on. Who's sitting down on the airplane right now with mask in your face? You're done frustrated already with a 4.5-hour flight from New York. And you're saying, okay, let me go to the fine prints and see and make sure how many times I need test.
Yeah, hold on, we got a caller. Caller, where you calling us from?
New York.
Go ahead, caller.
I only have one thing to say.
Go ahead.
And there's so much stuff in the fine print, like some people are saying. What I have to say is that once you land in Grenada, you are going to quarantine until you have a negative result. If you do a negative result on hand and a doctor doesn't sign off and you leave in the facility, and you have no place to go. All this babbling around about, oh, you have this days and you have that days. No, they need to put their foot down. Grenada is a small country. Once one person gets it, it could spread on the island in less than half an hour. So to put their life and the lives of the other Grenadians, they're putting their lives at risk. And it's not fair to the people who live down there when you go travel and you have to leave and go back and you leave the disease down there.
Yeah.
Number one, they don't have the facility. Number two, they don't have the proper protective wear. Like if you were saying that, the guy was saying that, oh, they only a mask on. If you test positive, you're not supposed to go on somebody with only a mask on. So technically, that should tell you that they do not have the proper gear to people with COVID-19.
All right, caller. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input right there. One last caller on the WhatsApp. Call on the WhatsApp. Go right ahead.
Hello.
Yeah,
Can
go
you
right.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm calling from Canada.
Go ahead, Canada.
Yeah. I think, a lot of us have the wrong concept of blaming the government, right?
Right.
But what I think the government should do is to put stiffer penalty in place. Like, for example, if I want to come home, I know I have a process to go through, right?
Right.
So I will go through the process. But in the meanwhile, I think, like, for example, if you book in a hotel I'm coming to Grenada and I'm booking a hotel, I have to pay in advance. Or, for example, if I want to rent a vehicle, I have to make a deposit, a down payment. So what I think the government should do is, for example, who is coming, I think they should put a penalty in place. For example, I think they should say, okay, give me $2,000 in advance, surrender your passport. At the end of, your 4 days, if you are clear, then you can go ahead. But if you're not, for example, you test positive, then you can't go. But once I have your position, like your passport, let's say, for example, the down payment is $2,000. And if I break that bond, then I lose my $2,000 and still I have your passport. So I think the government needs to put certain things in place, because at the end of the day, everything, the people is blaming the government. But again, we big people, we're not little kids. And there's a procedure that we have to go through. And I think we should follow it, right? Because I know people were blaming the government, oh, there's coronavirus here, there's coronavirus, where there was no virus in Grenada at the time, right? When the virus then come to Grenada now, or the government was hiding it all the time. They wanted the government to open back up the nightclubs and all these kind of things. Look at what happened. This guy come, he ran away. Look at what's going on right now. Everybody's panicking.
Right.
And
I don't want to be held liable for
the lawyer say he drive away.
He didn't run away.
He didn't run away, he drive. The lawyer say he drive away.
Thank you so much, caller. We appreciate your input. Calls going fast and furious. We're gonna take this last call, guys, and we go summarize it and talk about all this inputs. Caller, you live. Where are you calling us from? 315.
Caller? I call him from Grenada.
Go right ahead, caller.
All right. I just want to say good afternoon to the panel, right?
Yes.
I want to remind the public that many times things which are in black and white are not followed by the persons in authority. We had one gentleman who called earlier and spoke of the things that were on black and white. And we must remember that we're dealing with human beings who make mistakes many times. And some of the things that are printed in black and white are not even followed by those in authority most times or some of the times.
Right.
Right. So it based on what some of us have heard is that the gentleman who we speak of, he was given the directive to leave the facility. Right. We know for sure that many times there is the opportunity the ministry has to cover up many things because they have access to the media and so on. Would they really admit to making mistakes like these, right? If the fault was on them, would they really say that it was us that did it? Now, what really confuses me is that how is it possible for an individual to leave a quarantine facility where lives are at risk? Did he really leave the facility unknowing to those in authority? Did they have a responsibility to the people of Grenada to secure that facility to make sure that persons such as this gentleman who are COVID positive are not able to leave a quarantine facility? So if indeed the gentleman did walk out or run out or whatever the case is of a quarantine facility without getting a result, I would say, he has been irresponsible. But many times, knowing that we're dealing with individuals who might believe, I'm feeling healthy, I'm not seeing any signs of COVID, we know that that is the reality. And our persons in authority have to implement protocols not to deal with expectation that people will do the right thing at all the times. But what they are supposed to do is to implement protocols and execute protocols that would deal with reality, a point where persons make mistakes. So I would say, in all analysis, that persons in authority, they really need to buck up. This is not the first time somebody left or could have infected the country. We had a gentleman who traveled COVID positive a few months ago, I believe to Canada or wherever. And our persons in authority have a responsibility to take care of us at all times. So that is my take, Junior. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, caller. Guys, a lot was said here. A couple different calls. What's your take? What's your take on all of this?
You're asking us?
Yeah.
For me personally, COVID is something that no matter where you're living, is something that we have to learn to live with and deal with. Follow the necessary protocols. Some countries or some places have experienced the depth of it much more than others, like here in Grenada. And if you are someone like myself who choose to come home for whatever reason you decide to come home, I think the onus is on you to ensure that you follow the necessary protocols that are in place and you do what you need to do to ensure that you're not only protecting the community, but you're also protecting yourself. Because whatever you yourself would do, can you imagine if I run away right now, the next person run away? It's a cycle. You understand me? So it's everybody's responsibility. Junior, you're in New York. All of us were in New York. We were at the cusp of everything. But at the same time, we follow protocols, right? So why is it so different if you're coming here or you're going to a different country? That's just my take on it. If you make a decision, I hear a lot of people in the chat talking about why open up the borders and why do this and why do that. Because at the end of it all, life goes on. Things still have to happen. The economy still have to run. There is so many other factors that we need to take in place while doing it safely. And we have to learn how to deal with it. That's just my take for right now. I know some people are going to come at me, but it's the truth.
Come at you, they must. Janice?
I think I would reemphasize that if facilities are agreeing to be COVID quarantine facilities, they need to have structures in place. You don't want to make anybody feel like they're in prison, but there has to be some kinds of checks and balances when a person, because you know the risk of the people that you are accepting in your facility. So there should be some checks and balances in that I am almost like I am responsible for the people for that period, for that quarantine period. You must be responsible for them if your facility is a quarantine approved facility. You must have some form of security. It cannot be a place where people are allowed to walk into the room and hang out. Otherwise, we're not making sense. We might as well just let the people loose in the community, Someone mentioned on the chat just now about taking people's travel documents when they come in. That may be a little unconstitutional or touchy, because then you need immigration on hand to secure that travel document of that person when they come into the country. So that might be blowing it a little out of proportion. But the fact that when you apply for a facility and it's approved, I think there should be some form of security. There should be some form of bond. There should be some form of something. Because, for example, the person that said that they went home to Wester Hall, right? We're trusting that that person is staying inside. That person is a grown-up and they're agreeing to stay inside and follow the protocols. It could have been a bunch of young people going to that facility in Wester Hall. Yes, it's checked and it's a good facility. There's nobody else on the premises that they can interact with. But if it's a group of young people, who says they're not making oil down and drinking babash in the yard after 7 o'clock every night with friends from on island? So there has to be some form of checks and balances in terms of being responsible for the people in your quarantine facility for the duration of that time. The wording, we cannot stress how much you need to, although we expect people to be grown up, although we expect people to be responsible, we cannot stress again how important it is to word documents properly and leave no loopholes, like Mr. Edwin is finding loopholes or searching for loopholes in the write-up. But as the gentleman from the Ministry of Health that called earlier, the public relations officer for the Ministry of Health, he stated clearly, and that's where I searched and found that document earlier, that it's a minimum of 4 or 5 days.
It is.
It is. I found it on the gov.gd website, the Ministry of Health gov.gd website. Junior, I forwarded that to you a little earlier. It is on that website. It's all laid out there. Mm-hmm. Again, they say if you want to hide something from one of us, put it in writing. So Junior, I'll be very honest with you. If I came down on the flight and I saw this, chances are I may not have read it. I would just sign it too. And I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm just saying it's kind of what we do. There are certain people we trust to write things for us, like the airlines, and we just sign it. The declaration that you're not coming in with contraband and stuff, we sign it. We just have to. And for the people, I hope this is a learning experience for the people who are planning to go home. Listen, if you cannot afford to quarantine for 14 days, at least, so budget for 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
You may get out in 4, and you have real money to spend by umbrellas and them, and drink beers by day. But budget for 14 days.
Guys, we
And
have.
when
Sorry, Janice, finish your thought. I just wanted to.
right. And when you budget for 14 days, if you're allowed out in 4 days, it's okay. It's all good. But don't go with the premise or the misunderstanding that you're going to be there for 4 days, and after that you could just grab your bag and drive out.
Right.
It's quarantine. It's COVID times. It's not normal. It's not normal times.
Right. We're joined now by Mr. Jerry Edwin, who is the attorney representing COVID patient number 25. We saw the press briefing earlier today where he was pressed on a number of things as it regards to the young man and his stay and driving off from quarantine 4 days into the quarantine. Mr. Jerry Edwin, a lot of people having a difficult time understanding your analogy of the gentleman leaving within the 4 day period, but not breaking protocol. Just give us just kind of, probably you said it differently, probably we didn't hear it properly. So just give us your thought, your brain thought as to why you think that he didn't break protocol if he left before he was given the okay to leave.
Thank you, Janelle, and I'll repeat what I said. The protocol required that the gentleman remain in quarantine for 4 days. That is what is required. That is
minimum of 4 days. Minimum of 4 days, right? Minimum of 4 days or just 4 days?
4 days. That's what it wasn't only him that was told that. Everybody that came in on that flight, that's what they told. That's what they were told. And that's what they did. 5 of them booked a room for 4 days. They showed the reservation of the facility for the 4 days to immigration. At that point, they were in full compliance. Yes, based on the letter of the law. We're not trying now to interpret it, and we're not looking for loopholes. That is what they understood. I have to remain quarantined for 4 days. The lady who was just speaking, I think that you're absolutely right, ma'am. We are in Grenada, we call it COVIDious times, right? This is a global pandemic, the likes of which we have not seen. It's not quite as deadly as the Spanish flu of 100 years ago, but this one is pretty serious. Modern medicine cannot deal with it, right? Traditional medicine, maybe, but not modern medicine.
Yeah.
No, the question really is, seeing that we want to hypothesize about how many people have the disease and how many people don't, how many people were in contact with this young man. Remember, the test results. You see, I think that the problem here is that the timing of the test results does not match the period of quarantine. And I think really what we have in Grenada is the hoteliers driving the public health policy. Let's be clear. Because these people, the hotel owners and operators, they have stranded assets. That's what we call it in economics. You have non-performing assets. And I think like most of us, they have tremendous mortgages. And they more than most of us, in fact. So we went from 14 days without any explanation to 4 days. Being told that a PCR test is going to be available in those 4 days. In fact, the very site that is being mentioned by the Ministry of Health people is that a test result is available in 2 days. Right? So what is the thinking person to do? Number one, you go into a facility that is no quarantine. You're allowed to mingle, mix, share meals, and have lunch with them. And your family up the road in Grandans or in Willis can bring them meals and sit around.
But who has that understanding, Mr. Edwin?
You apparently are not aware that this is the fact of what has occurred.
Somebody in quarantine was told that their families could come in and bring them meals and hang out, Mr. Edwin?
Aren't you shocked, ma'am? Aren't you surprised? Don't slay the messenger. Don't slay the messenger. Know what happened.
So, Mr. Edwin, so clarify that for me, please. Who told them, call names, point fingers, name names, behave like Jack Sparrow? Say who told them they could interact.
My dear ma'am, family members visited and brought lunch for these people while they were in quarantine, number one. Number two, they mixed and mingled with each other while they were in quarantine. Aren't you surprised to hear that?
But you're saying that they had, I'm not arguing that they did, but you are saying that they were told it's okay too.
Wait a minute, no fine points here. Let's talk practically here. We're in life. What happened is that visitors came to these persons, brought them lunch, hung around. There is no this is no quarantine. This is no quarantine. Let us fix that process.
Mr. Edwin, stick a pin.
This is teaching us.
Mr. Edwin, stick a pin one moment. Because we have a young lady here on the live with us that is currently in quarantine.
I do not doubt. I do not doubt. I don't know if her facility is the same as the other facility. All I can tell you is the condition of the facility in which the patient and 5 other people, actually 4 others, because there were 5 of them, that they were kept in. I cannot say anything about this lady's facility.
Mr. Edwin, can I ask you a question?
Let me finish. All I am saying is that the facility in which this person was kept had no guard. They were allowed to mingle, to eat together. Family members from outside Grenada came to visit them at this facility. Yes? They were told they would get a test 2 days later. So in other words, it was a very lax environment. Maybe it's different from the condition the person on the show is, and I don't have any reason to doubt her.
That's not my experience.
What the facts are.
That is not my experience. Period. We're not allowed to interact with
absolutely.
People. If someone drops something for me, they have to be outside. No outside people are allowed to come in. And the only point of contact, like I mentioned before, is that of the security guard, and they leave the things at the front door. So basically, that is my experience. So I cannot speak for other places.
And I can speak for my client and what happened at the facility where he was. And that is uncontradicted. Because the other people who were there said exactly that.
So one of the first things we need to do is close down that facility, because that facility is a hazard to the nation.
You better believe it.
Secondly,
you
Mr.
better
Edwin,
believe it.
Secondly, Mr. Edwin, if you came from a hot zone, as we are categorized in hot zones.
I don't think, is Canada a hot zone, by the way?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
If you came from one of these zones,
yes, from
knowing
Canada.
the possibilities, the possibilities. Mr. Edwin, would you invite people into your room to hang out and chill while you are in quarantine? And I'm asking you this as a responsible citizen.
Wait. No. You're not asking me this as a responsible person. You're asking me this as an attorney who is representing an individual. And I will tell you this. I will tell you this because it could have been you, and I would take the same position that I am taking now. The law says that you have to have a reservation before you come into Grenada. The law says you have to have a test within 7 days before you get on that airplane. And that test must be negative. I'm simply saying that's what the law requires and that he followed that law.
So the law
he
did
have
not
left?
say.
Should
The
he
law
have
did
left?
not say it can have people that it cannot have people to hang out with it.
No, wait. As you say, the facility in which they were kept is no quarantine. It's no quarantine. But is that the responsibility of those people, or is it the responsibility of the Ministry of Health? Maybe they should have checked with where this young lady is staying and
It's
say,
the
well,
responsibility of a responsible person.
Hold on, Mr. Edwin.
It's a responsibility. No, it's a
Quick
responsibility.
question.
So then everybody is irresponsible then.
Quick question, Mr. Edwin. If, hypothetically, God forbid, I have HIV knowingly, and I went to Grenada, and I decide I'm going to share the gift, am I responsible, irresponsible?
What you have done is taken what you have done. We call this the straw man argument. You could blow and it will lie. Yeah, so it wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. I think that we should have all the facilities in Grenada should be exactly like the ones this young lady is at. That's the real point. Because really, if I'm at a facility and I'm told it's a quarantine, I can play cards with people who visit with me. We can eat, we can drink, we can dance. And the people who are staying there, we can mix and mingle. I'm sure they're not doing that where this young lady is staying. So in that kind of environment, if you tell me then I'm going to get a test result by the 2nd day, by the 3rd day, by the 4th day, mind you, ma'am, there is nobody outside the door of this facility. There is nobody there. As opposed to where this young lady is staying. And I came in, by the way, I came in negative. Remember, I came in negative. Then I believe I am negative. Should I leave? Let me be clear. No, I should not leave. But there are people who are leaving these facilities, but after their 4 days, after their quarantine period, and then they are contacted. The reality on the ground in Grenada is different from the paper than we are reading. Okay, guys? Don't forget that. The paper is saying one thing, the reality is something different.
Michelle, you were
before we go on, again, I know of someone who is going through the process right now of getting their facility considered to be that of a COVID-19 approved facility. And again, there is a level of checks and things that they need to put in place, and security, round the clock cleaning, round the clock staff. Those are just some of the things that are required in order for you to pass to get your facilities up to code and up to standard. Again, I cannot speak on other facilities, but if these people are violating what they signed off for to ensure that these measures are put in place, then they need to face the penalty just the same. Because when you are making application for your facility to become that of a quarantine state approved venue, it's not just 1, 2, 3. There are certain things that you must put in place. And that I know for a fact.
Yeah.
So again, I think the onus comes on every single party involved. the facility owners, the individuals who are coming in. There are so many different things that need to be considered.
Yeah, I believe so as well. We're gonna wrap up, guys. This was a very lengthy discussion, but I still have a very strong opinion that there's a level of responsibility that's placed on an individual when they go into quarantine. I went to quarantine in Canada, and my responsibility was to stay indoors for X amount of period of time, and I did that.
Mm-hmm.
I think anyone who travel, especially going back to your homeland, that's a responsibility, that's a burden you should have on you, just consciously, like I could be possibly infected, and that's what you have to think. I could be possibly infected. I don't want to infect the wider population. So that responsibility is placed on everyone. And regardless of if there is 10,000 police officers that's in your facility with guns drawn and making sure you don't move, you still should have a responsibility with it, whether they have it or not, because you don't want to bring this out to the wider population. So that is my point, and I
Sure,
think,
Mr. George, let me ask you, Mr. George, I have to ask you. When you
yeah,
went to Canada, were you allowed? Did you have a PCR test in New York?
no,
Right. When you went to Canada, were you spending monies at for a hotel stay when you went to Canada?
no,
Right. So the client, my client, got on an airplane with a negative PCR test,
right,
right? And he paid, and I don't know why there is this requirement that people should pay. Close the damn airport. Anyway, he paid. He's confident, as you would imagine, because only 7 days ago. Now, these are the subjective human elements. I'm confident that I don't have this disease. In my workplace, during the course of the last year, the last 6 months, I've been tested in my workplace. Every single person in my workplace in Canada was tested, and we all came up negative. There's no family member of mine that is positive. In fact, 3 of my family members, including my young children, were tested at school, negative. I get on the plane, I'm negative. I come to Grenada. Oh, this must be a perfunctory, a pro forma kind of thing, because there's really nobody here to say, well, you guys can't do this. They must have confidence, these Grenadian authorities, that we are all negative. After all, we're hanging out together. I'm getting food from outside. So subjectively, I believe, oh, I'm negative. Yes, my client should have waited for the result. Don't get me wrong, guys. But understand the environment. Yes, understand the environment. And as soon
Mr.
as they
Edwin,
told him, hey, you got to come down, you're positive, he drove himself back. Yes,
Mr.
that
Edwin,
is responsible. Yes, ma'am.
I was looking I was listening to the other live, the one you did earlier, and you were
Yes.
almost confident that your client's results are error. And
No, no, I didn't say that. I said, and I'll say it again, that it could be a false positive. You can have 2 false positives in a row with COVID. There are many people this has happened to around the world. Many people. 3 false positives. So that's why you have to test them every day. Because once you get one negative report, you no longer get negative results. You no longer get positive results. Yeah, that's why you got to test them every day. Maybe we need some rigor.
You also said that they're giving your clients prophylactics. What medication is your client on?
No. They're not giving him anything. Because they are not giving him anything, His friends went to the door, not in contact with him. Yes, in a safe, secure jar, they gave him some Grenadian medicine. Yeah,
What is
like
he
they do in
taking?
China,
Because we wanna know if
like
he
they do
gonna
in
work. Next thing
Taiwan.
we discover the cure for COVID. What is he taking, Mr. Edwin?
But next, that's why I'd be happy to tell you that when it happens. Trust me, I'd be happy to tell you that because you raised something, young lady. You raised such an important point because all
All right. We lost it.
herbs,
we lost it. But
all kind of herbs they're taking. That's what I mean by prophylactics. Eh? A prophylactic is a herb.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A prophylactic is a herb, right?
Yeah, I
So they're
understand.
taking herbs all over the world. You know what I'm talking about. They're taking it except in the Caribbean. For some reason, we are the pharmacy. We have been the pharmacy to the world, right? Robitussin and Vicks come from plants that are endemic to the Caribbean, but
Right.
we're not taking any of them. Right.
Please keep a note of what your patient is taking because we may need to patent it.
Yes, ma'am, we will.
Guys,
Yes, ma'am, we will.
we gotta wrap there. An extended version of Right Along Live. We thank you guys for watching. Mr. Edwin.
Thank you, Junior, and thank you to your audience as well. And I hope the lady, let me say, I hope the lady, Mr. George, I hope the lady who is in quarantine, I hope she comes out safely and enjoys herself here in Pure Grenada. Welcome home.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Edwin. Guys, let's wrap up. Mashida, starting with you. How do you wrap this whole thing up here from what your understanding is on the process of quarantine? Go ahead.
The process of quarantine, like I mentioned before, this is something that is affecting us globally. We all have to come to terms with it. We all have a responsibility, whether we're local and we have not traveled outside of Grenada in the past 6 to 8 months. Even if they're saying that there is no positive cases here, they're still trying to discover how all of this spread is happening. So we cannot be delusional about the fact that we are so free and we don't have to have some level of responsibility in protecting ourselves, whether you're in a high risk or low risk area. Truth be told, I think things still have to continue, life have to continue. There is such a trickle-down effect of this whole pandemic stuff. And we all have to have some level of understanding and responsibility of figuring out how to best move forward in coping and dealing with things. Because whether we like it or not, things have to change and they will change and they are changing every single day. But we have to be agile and flexible enough to go with it. The onus of protecting yourself falls on you. You cannot be 100% reliant on the authorities or your neighbor doing the right thing. You have to also do what you need to do. When all of these things started, being in New York, I was at the helm. The first place was not too far from my hometown, but I did what I needed to do. And I made sure that my family, including my own mom, who is an elderly person, and my immediate families, who also dealt with a lot of trauma during this time, protected ourselves. And I still carry that same notion here, so we all have to play our part. Is the system flawed? Of course, everything is flawed. But as someone alluded to earlier on, as we continue to move forward, we need to evaluate where the gaps are, where the holes are, and fix it. So we're not continuing to make the same set of problems and issues. You know what I'm saying? We need to figure out a way to cope with this. So that's my take on it.
And also, don't forget to add in there that you're there for your film festival. 1261 2021, the film festival, Mashida, we had to put that in there. Tell us quickly about the film festival and what could people expect in the film festival come 2020.
Basically, what we're doing is exactly what I'm preaching and how I live my life. In the sense, it's going to be virtual. The majority of it is going to be virtual, and we are having a couple in-person experiences where the safety protocols is something that we really take into consideration. It's limited attendees, so we are following the mandates, and we are just doing what we have to do: mask, sanitization, temperature checks, and we have different zones for different people. And yeah, it's going to be that kind of experience because we have to learn how to cope and how to adjust. We have to.
Yeah, absolutely. For more information on the film festival, we're going to paste some that on the Ride Along page. Want you guys to check that out. Jan, wrap it up for us.
Junior, COVID is not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, contrary to what POTUS says, the President of the United States of America, there is no magic vaccine waiting to come out before November election. COVID is not going anywhere anytime soon. We have to learn to live with this. We have to learn to cope. We have to learn to follow protocols. We have to learn to respect ourselves and each other. Someone once said, if it was the elderly if it was children who were most susceptible to COVID, the elderly would have been more responsible in their actions, and the death toll may have been different because no grandmother or great aunt wants to know that she's doing stuff that would endanger her grandson or her niece. And I believe that is true, not just from experience, but I think people are just getting accustomed to COVID and thinking that, you know what, it's gonna go away. That too shall pass. Yes, it shall. But right now we have to wear our masks. Mm-hmm. We have to social distance. We have to wash with soap and water. When I leave the house, I have soap and water in the car. Mm-hmm. So if Brandon and I go outside, if we stop to eat, we sanitize after we go into buildings and touch doors and stuff. But anytime there's food involved, we wash hands with soap and water. The car has soap, it has water, it has paper towel. That's the only how we put in hand and mouth. So you have to do whatever little you can to protect yourself and your family and, well, the greater community as a whole. The folks in Grenada, let me tell you something. Because somebody don't look sick, it doesn't mean that there's nothing wrong with them. You have to treat everybody like they're a potentially infected person. It don't matter who they are, how much you love them, how much you miss them, how long they've been gone and they're coming home. You treat everybody as though they're infected. And that is the first step. You do not hang out with somebody unless their quarantine period has passed. You do not socialize with somebody unless they're in the safe zone. And because somebody is your friend and they're hanging out with you, doesn't mean that they're not hanging out with other people who may not be as careless as careful as they are. They might be hanging out with people that are potentially careless. So everybody has to take responsibility for their actions. And we have to start doing it now. This here is the litmus test. This is the ultimate test as to how Grenada prevents and protects going forward. And if we learn nothing from this, then we would have failed this exam miserably. This is our learning experience. We should take away and correct every loophole from patient 25. I wish he's okay. I hope he's okay. For our sake, for the nation's sake, I wish he's okay. I wish if other people were compromised, it's contained. I wish it is for Grenada's sake, because we do not have the medical facilities to cope with COVID-19. So y'all stay safe. Wash hands, wear the mask. I know the mask gets tedious, it gets uncomfortable, but it's a necessary evil right now. So do what you need to do and stay safe.
Thank you, ladies. We really appreciate you, and we're gonna keep preaching that word of staying safe, guys. I got final thoughts coming up, but we have to break, quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Don't move.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
You want a hand sanitizer to do 3 things: kill germs, be gentle, and to go where you go. You can get all of that in our hand sanitizer. Hard on germs, gentle on hands, affordable. Remember, hand sanitizers contain alcohol. Keep away from heat and flames and avoid contact with eyes. Available at retailers island-wide.
Hey, I got some good news for you. Looking for a passionate immigration lawyer with experience that spans over 2 decades? Someone trusted that served immigrant families just like yours? Well, look no more. Now you can benefit from her personal and professional experience. Diane Winter Funde. Schedule a consultation now and get assistance with your immigration journey. Specialize in adjustment of status, B1 business visa, B2 visitors visa, consular processing, deportation defense, naturalization, and more. Give us a call today at 813-815-3529. That's 813-815-3529 or online at winterimmigration.com. Attorney Diane Winter Funde. Law done differently.
You're constantly thinking of food, but sometimes you just don't want to cook or want something a little different. That's when you call Tasties, preparing meals that you really love. Tasties, our mouth-watering food, would have you coming back every day. But hold on, we only prepare meals Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for now. Call early because we have a lot to serve and we would love to serve you. Tasties, we prepare the meals you love to eat. From macaroni pie to baked chicken, provision dumpling and saltfish, stewed chicken, curry chicken, baked chicken, rice and peas, salads, and more. Please call for daily menu. Call 425-0624 or 403-0411. You can pick up your meals from us or we deliver to you. Tasties, food that's delicious.
Again, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for being a part of our extended ride-along program today. Don't forget, we want you guys to be safe. And for everyone who's planning to travel, guys, it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to protect the people around you. All right? It's every one of us' responsibility to protect our loved ones. It means that if you feel that you were compromised, or if you feel that you were around someone who may have been close to someone that have COVID-19, it means that you yourself should quarantine for a total of 14 days. Be safe. And if you feel like you have symptoms or you're exhibiting some symptoms, take precautionary measures, right? Isolate, quarantine yourself for a total of 14 days. Get a test. Don't take it on yourself to feel, well, yeah, you're feeling good. You have runny nose, you have all the symptoms, shortness of breath, but you're still going to go wrong. And you basically, sometimes you don't have, sometimes you don't have any symptoms at all. You're asymptomatic, but you're still able to spread this virus. So you got to be very careful and think about it like everyone around you also have COVID-19. Wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, wear your mask everywhere you go. And if you're traveling, guys, if you're traveling to anywhere, you have to abide and adhere to the protocol by the respective territory that you're entering. You have to abide by the safety protocols. It's there for a reason, to protect you, to protect the wider population. All right? Thanks again for watching, guys. Tomorrow we're back with our Right Trivia. I want you guys to join us. If you never joined us for Right Trivia on a Friday, where it's no drama, it's just game, it's tomorrow. All right? So join us tomorrow from 6 p.m. right here for Right Trivia on Ride Along Live. Also, if you have a story to tell, we want you to inbox us. Get your story out there. share your story right here on Ride Along Live. And also, I want to tell you guys about this new venture that we're doing. It's a $1,000 shopping spree. Now, do you know someone who might need, or in a position right now that they would need at least a $500 shopping spree? Ride Along Live is offering this opportunity. I want you guys to nominate someone for a $500 shopping spree. $1,000 because we're doing in Grenada. We're doing two. One in Carriacou, one in Grenada. $500 in Carriacou, $500 in Grenada. I want you guys to nominate someone right now by downloading this app. It's called Emoji. Look for it in your app store. Download this app, and you see a option there that says spree. Click that option and type in someone's name and information. Their name will be put into a wheel and randomly selected. The person that wins will get their $500 shopping spree. We're asking you guys to nominate people that you know that needs the assistance, because anybody could win. Nominate someone for our $1,000 grand prize shopping spree. Listen, no purchase necessary. They don't have to be ever watch or a view of the program or purchase anything. They just have to be in it. Enter to win it. All right, no purchase necessary. Thanks again for watching. If you guys having some issues in nominating someone, please inbox us and we'll help you to nominate someone for our $1,000 shopping spree. Now, this wouldn't be our first and last. We're looking to do quite a few more shopping sprees, but we need your help so that we could continue to do it. So you could also donate. So we could continue to do this on a bi-weekly or monthly basis. All right. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of our program today. Catch me again tomorrow. Peace out, everybody. Bye-bye.
This is Ride Along Live, where everyone has a story to tell.